Is Pico in the way?
No, Pico's fine. It was just like,
Are you introducing Pico? Okay.
Yeah, sure. This is the Paper Chasers Book Club. This is Pico de Gallo. And I also have my sisters and my mom. We're reading True Biz today by Sara Novic, which is a book about the deaf community. Is that the proper way to write? Okay. I just want to call out that my mom, you were just wearing some crazy outfits. And
It was paisley.
and it was not appropriate because when you're signing, it distracts people. So is this too distracting still, or is that good?
it is a little distracting with the white and everything to the sides. But I mean, my polka dots and everything, unless it's plain black, plain solid color where it's not distracting to the eye.
And that's a real thing. In the deaf community, everyone's wearing neutral colors.
In our case, since we're in ASL, they have our test and stuff is a blank screen or a green screen behind them and then a plain shirt. Obviously out in the world it's different. You're not going to go around wearing that, but if you're signing to a video or you're out somewhere, it's more respectful to be in something more plain.
More respectful. So you're more of an advocate if you're wearing neutral colors.
And it's on like our
if you're signing.
Right. If you're signing. It's like cultural considerations is what's like on our like rubrics. Yeah. So it's like, do you have a blank background? Do you have a blank thing? Are you not chewing gum? Don't have a hat on? Stuff like that.
Yeah. So for context for the viewers, you guys are the one that chose this book. So this is a crazy day to be recording this. I'm recording it today because today was your guys' ASL final exam.
That's right.
For your junior year. So we officially be seniors. Big congratulations.
Woo!
Yeah, golf claps in the mic. I need to hear though, what is it? So ASL, American Sign Language.
Yes.
What does that, first off, what level are you in terms of expert versus intro, and what does that final look like?
So I want to start off with saying we're not experts, we're not interpreters, we're not special, like any of that stuff, because that can get mixed up and be seen as disrespectful. We're people that are learning ASL. We've not been through anything with ASL. So I want to start off with that because I don't want it taken in any wrong context that we're here to teach people something or something. This is just our interpretation.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. How long haven't you been learning for how many years?
For 3 years. We've started freshman year and now we just finished our junior year. So we're in ASL 4 honors next year.
And I know that you guys are getting good at learning it because I see you guys using it in public and actually using it. I envy that because when I learned Spanish for 10 years, I never really use it, and very rarely. You guys use ASL daily, would you say?
Yeah, I sign even at my gymnastics, like my friends, someone's in ASL too in my gym, and I sign with her all the time, even when we're in like close.
And she's not deaf?
No.
And what, do you sign with her because it's better, easier to express yourself, or is it just you have your own little private chat without anyone else listening?
It's really just we both love ASL. It's just like a thing we do, and I love having like the conversation where no one knows what's going on.
Yeah, like your own private chat.
And also when we're like across the gym, because our gym's huge. So if we're across the gym, I can't read what you're saying. I can see your sign. I can see everything you're saying. So it's really helpful.
You can communicate further away.
Yeah.
That's pretty tactical.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier.
Can you sign for us something like welcome to the Paper Chasers Book Club?
Okay, so this is what you take like a 5, like a close 5, you say welcome, and then you sign paper, P-A-P-E-R, and then Chasers, C-H-A-S-E-R-S. So
Book club? You got the book club?
Well, this is book, and then you would just say club.
I noticed that in the book, so for context, before I get into all the I'll lay out the context a little bit, but I noticed in the book when one of the main characters, because there's 3 main characters and it switches their perspectives, when they're learning sign language, they just spell things when they don't know the actual word for it.
Yeah.
Is it frowned upon to be spelling and not know the actual word?
When you have a full-on conversation, it's hard. You're gonna be finger spelling the whole time. That's really not what people do because it would take so long and follow all of that.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many signs to it. But if you're specifying something, it's more usual to just finger spell it really quick.
So it's not frowned upon. It's just not ideal.
It's not frowned upon in art.
I want to quickly jump to, if I was watching this, a book on the deaf community would not necessarily connect with me. It does not, it's not my natural interest, not having a background, not having any family members who are deaf. But I want to say that this book, True Biz, for me, was great at really putting me in someone else's shoes in a way that I never thought was possible. I already like to think that I'm empathetic. I like to think about what other people go through. But this took it to a whole new level. Right away in the book, even in the book, when they're writing out, like when you read a book, it's words. They show you from the person's perspective. Like if you were deaf, all of a sudden it would be like a blank word and you don't know what the sentence means. And it zaps you from a deaf person's perspective of, oh my gosh, wait a second. They probably have to do this every single day of hearing someone talk and then not having fill in blank in words. And that must be frustrating. So I just wanted to talk about that. This book is actually a great read for that reason, to learn about a whole new community.
Yeah, I think we see it even in our lives with Nani, where we're like on the phone with her and we're like, oh my God, she doesn't understand me. She's not hearing me.
I feel like everyone getting older always has hard. Yeah, that's
Right.
so it's almost applicable to everyone.
And we get aggravated. We're like, come on, put your hearing aids on. Liz, like, why isn't she understanding it? They're going through that from the day they're born to the day they die. That's not like you're just getting old. It's like that's a whole thing you go through. So.
Yeah, there was a point where, so speaking of this empathy piece, another perspective it brought in was talking about, let me find the exact, here it is. Let me go to page 18 really quick so I can bring up everything I want to in this.
Yeah, perfect.
By the way, did y'all read the hard book cover? Do you do hard book or Kindle audiobook?
Yeah, I do the hard book.
Okay.
Paper copy.
Audio hardcover? Okay.
Yeah, I prefer
I
having
enjoy
the
that.
physical book.
Tactile. I want to. Yeah.
Yeah, I want it. And it's easy to get off the screen. I like being off my phone and having it all separate.
It is a good break, right? Probably for your eyes too, but
Yeah.
even just mentally.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Is this the first? Do you guys read books normally, or is it just for class?
No, I usually don't read as much, but
Yeah.
we had the unit for like choice novels, so that's why we chose True Biz. There was like 8 books you could choose from, and we chose this one.
For choice novels?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? You get to choose a book?
Yeah, she gave you like 8 options, and you could choose one and like put it on your list, and that's what we chose for our English class.
For English class. This wasn't even part of ASL.
No, this is English.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, this is English.
I thought ASL had you read that.
No.
Oh, I love that.
What made you guys get into ASL in the first place? Was it just you just had to choose a language?
When we moved, we had a choice between ASL and Mandarin, I think.
Not
like-
Spanish or French?
No, they were all filled. They were all filled up because we like.
Before the school year started.
So we only had 2 options, and we chose ASL because we had already started. We like look up on Safari and like the alphabet, and like we knew all that. We're like, okay, we could do this. It sounds fun.
Okay.
So, yeah, I remember Tia, one of Ari's friends, taught us the alphabet because one of her cousins were deaf, so we like knew the alphabet.
I didn't know that.
So going into, I'm like, oh, ASL 1, I got that, the alphabet. A lot more than just the alphabet.
That is probably a pretty big like misconception that it's just
Right.
the alphabet.
Yeah, as soon as I knew the alphabet, I'm like, oh, I can do ASL fluently. And I'm in ASL 3, and I'm like, there's a lot.
And even in here, it mentions different types of even cultures. Like there's
Yeah.
American Sign Language, different other sign language. Even in America, there's different types of sign language.
Yeah.
Like the Black ASL.
Black ASL, yeah.
Which is, I want to get to that. Let's get to it a little bit later. I want to jump back to why I was here. It talks about how some parents in this book, and so they were talking about times when parents don't want their kids to learn sign language. That used to really be prevalent, that sign language was looked down upon. They used to tie their hands down, that sort of thing. But talking about a lot of parents who just want kids to get their hearing aids and that sort of thing. And there was a misconception that learning sign language would interfere with your actual English. And one of the things I was just thinking about is for those kids who have to sign, like just imagine if you were like naturally an extrovert, but you're not able to communicate. I think that's what I was getting to. I know I jumped around a few points from there, but I just couldn't imagine like if you're naturally an extrovert and then just not being able to communicate.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of an extrovert, and like I like to talk to people and do that if I'm held back in class or something we can't speak, or talk to people when like groups and stuff like that, like projects alone, stuff like that where it's independent time. It's definitely annoying, and I could imagine just not being able to sign and stuff like that and being held back. I couldn't. Yeah, with the parents too, with it being like shamed upon. Even I think you mentioned one part of the book was saying like how much deaf kids, how many hearing parents
I
like.
think it's 9 out of 10 deaf kids have hearing parents.
Yeah, and I think that's to put in perspective. It's like having parents and then having you speak English and they speak Spanish and try
Oh my
communicating
gosh.
with them every day. It's you have to like point at objects. You miss every conversation, every family discussion. You miss everything. Like putting in perspective, like think about trying to communicate with someone through a different language. It's impossible.
I'll say, like, when I visited Puerto Rico the last time, I went to visit my family, and I didn't realize that, like, my uncle who I was visiting, because he was staying at the house that I was going to stay at, that my dad sent me to, he didn't speak any English. And because of that, I was supposed to stay there for a few days. I left the next morning because I couldn't talk with him, and I tried to use the translator, and he was like, it was like frowning at it, and it was just, it's just so frustrating to not be able to communicate with someone. And this is the type of perspective that I talked about that gave me some real empathy.
Yeah, I think you did that one day and couldn't handle it. They're born through that entire thing, and I think that's why the culture is strict on being respectful and understanding the struggle that they go through, because if you tried to do that for one day and you couldn't do it, imagine trying to communicate that your whole life. And in the beginning it was talking about tying down hands. It's torture, like that you're literally taking their abilities away.
So I want to have some True Biz. And okay, so the book is called True Biz, and True Biz means real talk. Is that the best way to...
Real talk or true business.
Translate to true business, real talk.
Have y'all heard that phrase before? I haven't heard it until this book.
I was trying to find what True Biz meant, because then in the book it said it's True Biz.
It's page 115, and finally, I always think it's funny when the book title is said in the book. I'm like, here's that moment. Be sure to talk in the mic moment.
Can you hear me?
Now you can hear me. Yeah. But some people think it's corny, like when movies say, this is Fast and Furious. I think it's cool though. I'm like, hey.
Yeah.
I like that moment.
It connects back. I like it. You finally get that.
It's
okay.
It's a good refresher. This is what we were waiting for.
A relief. Yeah.
All right, so some True Biz. I want to have True Biz, and I don't want to forget my point. The point of this is the empathy that I gained and how my perspective came up from this book. I actually didn't plan on bringing this up in the podcast, but I think it's relevant. Before I say what I want to say my intention is to talk about my learning journey and be real with. I'd rather be real than have a hard conversation in a mature manner. True Biz moment, real talk. I dated someone who was deaf for a couple weeks. I don't know if y'all knew that.
No, we didn't know. I had no idea.
I dated them for a couple weeks, and this is what happened. It was like, in terms of the disability or deaf or anything, that was fine. I was totally cool with that. I just remember that after I got to know the person a little bit more, after around week 2, at the time, because they also worked at a school, because they were deaf, and so they were very involved. That's a great way to give back and create meaning. And I just remember they were always talking about being deaf and increasing rights for deaf people and how they're mistreated. And I felt like it was so much a part of their identity in every conversation. At the time, I was a little thrown off by it when I was new to it. It's almost like an equivalent is like someone who maybe loves the fact, let's say for me, let's say I'm Puerto Rican, let's say I'm always talking about I'm Puerto Rican. Puerto Rican people are this, Puerto Rican people are that. I'm always relating it back to race, for example. I felt like they were doing that for their disability. And at the time, I didn't have this type of empathy. It was an intro to it. And so I moved away a little bit. I was like, are we always going to be focusing on this and not move past this? And today I feel like maybe that was a little unempathetic. I didn't really understand.
Yeah, so our ASL teacher, her husband's deaf, and so she was telling us a story at the workplace, because the discrimination in the workplace against deaf people is, you wouldn't imagine. So her husband works at for construction and stuff like that, and she would take calls from him and be like, this man is deaf, he owns a blah blah, and they just hang up on her, and they'd be like, I don't want to deal with a deaf person, I don't want to deal with that, I'll just go to somewhere else. And it was a struggle, because I would try to advocate for him and tell him that he's just trying to build a business, he's just trying to make a living, right? And they just I don't want to deal with that, and hang up and not help his business just because he was deaf, and they didn't want to take the extra step. So it was, yeah.
I would also like to point out something that you said, and I don't have my notes with me because you guys made me put my phone down.
No, you don't.
You might no, that's okay. You might remember. You might have notes on this. You're saying that it's a disability, but I also read in the book that some people look at it as a disability, and then some people are very offended by saying that it's a disability, that it's an honor to be deaf.
It's definitely a very big conversation.
It's very controversial.
It's in our class. She tries to educate us on that, and
educate you on what?
So what is the general consensus that you are learning? Because it talks about that in the book. that
For-
people see it different ways.
What we've learned and been told from her in having a deaf husband, it's not a disability, it's more of a gift of having a tight community that understands you. You have that language between, and it is seen as a language because many people
A
still don't.
language, that's what it was.
They still don't see it as a language because you're signing and you're not speaking, but it is a language. It's sign
course.
I think it's
language.
considered a language, right? Officially.
It's officially, but some people are like, it's
Yeah.
not. It's still very not frowned upon, but seen as, oh, that's not really technically a language. You're just moving your hand. You're not speaking.
Yeah.
But it's
It
okay.
very
But
much is.
that is the only way of communication. That is the definition of a language. Is the communication key. But the conversation between disability.
And make sure you talk a little bit closer to the mic.
The definition between a disability and like a gift is a very hard conversation to have because many people are like,
Very
you can't
sensitive.
hear, so it is a disability. And if you're blind, it is a disability, but it's, you have a new community, a tight knit community that you have connections to and can build a big community and spread awareness to what goes on in that community.
And you can get very fluent in signing, and that could almost serve you better potentially.
It opens up a lot of doors too. It's like knowing sign, you can take that into college, you can be an interpreter, you can be like, there's so many like nonverbal kids, like you can sign to them, you can be like, there is a lot to it that opens up a lot of doors that a lot of people don't have because they don't know sign, they don't know that stuff like that. I realized when we got into the class, like sign language, like when you were babies, when you would go like this for like more food and stuff like that, like I didn't realize we did that, but when we're growing up, we do use sign language and stuff like that, which I never realized, but you want more food and stuff like that. Yeah.
I definitely see that it's enhanced your life, and you guys are twins, so you have technically your own language and communication. Many twins do. I don't think you introduced like at the beginning. I don't know if you want to do that. They're identical twins, so a lot of identical twins have, or twins.
I thought it was a given, but maybe
Yeah,
not.
right. I feel like you never look at us.
It's a
you can
video
tell.
podcast.
Are
Oh, but
they-
for the listeners though, there is audio only. Yeah, but
Oh, yeah, so we're identical twins, by the
Yeah.
way. Yes.
what up, audio only listeners?
So a lot of people will say you have your own language, so I think it's enhanced and made, like you said, if you want to be even more private or inconspicuous when you're at school or gymnastics or anytime you need to communicate. It's definitely a
Yeah.
positive.
It definitely has, yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, it's, yeah, I think
It's
we
enhanced your lives. I
Yeah.
really am so proud of you girls for doing this, and you really seem to love it and enjoy it. And
because many people think of it as you're just like throwing up your hands and you're just doing random stuff, but it's a way to, it's a language and it's very, I love it. Yeah, to also go on that, the reason why we're empathetic and loving towards a language, I think really goes back to our teacher. Miss Ryan has changed the game. Going into ASL 1, it was like, oh, okay, it's like a new language. But ASL 2 and 3, I've had Miss Ryan. It's the stories that she shared with us and the struggles. And it's not just ASL, it's the whole culture that she's showed us has like completely changed my view. And like what Kenny said, like the empathy has changed the game so much for us. Like I've never seen it as that until
And how was she introduced at ASL?
her husband's death.
So she married into
Yeah, and she's
someone who's
she has like a story. She told us a story about going to dinner, and she was with like his deaf family, and they're very blunt.
his family's deaf too.
Yeah, like they sign and stuff like that, and everything's very honest and blunt. She was like, I was very taken aback because if something was wrong, they just straight up say it, and that's just how the culture is. You're very blunt, and you can't hide facial expressions because facial expressions in ASL is everything. So like when something's up, what's up, and it's very blunt and straightforward.
So maybe so it's almost like you're forced to be authentic.
Yeah, because being very like using facial expressions is very important because there's a lot of signs that have multiple meanings that just based on if your eyebrows are down or up completely changes the entire sentence. Like, yeah.
So do you think that you're almost forced to be more authentic, or you can just fake that? If you do, you have to go all out and just fake how you're feeling and stuff, but it's probably harder to do that.
It's definitely harder. There was like a discussion question or something like that where it was brought up and I was like, how do deaf people like hide their emotions? Like, can they even? And everyone was like, I feel like they really can't because facial expressions is 50% of ASL because you show what you're signing, your who and what questions with your eyebrows and stuff like that. So
Imagine if everyone had to always be blunt.
yeah,
how that would be. I think that would expose
Yeah.
a lot of people's intentions because that's a really interesting topic at my work. I was telling you guys a little bit earlier, but I'm very involved in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And we always say, be your whole self, be your authentic self. But that comes into a problem when someone's authentic self is hateful or discriminating. And so we encourage you to be your authentic self, but if if you have bad intentions, you will not make it at this culture. You'll get let go. And so I just think about if you had to always, I think there was a dream you said blunt. You're always forced to be blunt because I am always authentic, but I feel like I'm only able to do that because I have good intentions. And that took me a very long time to genuinely develop like why I feel and why I have good intentions. Because you have to get past that kind of like in-group versus out-group, fighting other people for resources. You have to have this perspective that you want everyone to be their best selves and it'll work out for the better. And so if you don't have that, if you're just being blunt or honest, yeah, maybe that's a little bit more cutthroat if everyone's not like that. And going on the empathy piece, here's one actionable thing that I took away was one of the worst things you can do is show pity towards someone who's deaf. Have you guys seen that? Have you guys? Because I feel like that's an initial. I feel like it's a very common reaction for someone to genuinely have, not realizing from their perspective that someone's like, "Yo, this is who I am. Please don't show me pity. I don't want that."
I definitely started off like that and was like, I feel so bad for deaf people. They have a whole different thing. But if you flip your perspective and put yourself in their shoes, you're the one that's like different to them, right? Like they're not hearing anything. You're the ones that are hearing everything, speaking. So if you flip it, it's really just like that. So I don't know. I definitely.
It doesn't do anything. Like they don't want that.
At first, I was definitely felt pity, and now it's just. It's
So do not show pity, rather embrace them for who they are. Don't
Meet them where
don't see it as
where
like
they are.
yeah.
Because I feel in a way it makes them feel less of a person. Oh, you're looking at me like I have a disability. You're looking at me like I'm not an equal to you when I am. That's kind of thing. You don't have to look down on me because you know what I'm saying? It's like I'm equal to you. There's no reason to treat me any different.
Thank you for saying that. That is something I'm so cautious of. Even having this conversation, I always like to, just thinking about, I feel like I'm 100%, I'm just so ignorant in this space, coming across to someone who's,
No, I'm like, my neck hurts, my back's up working.
do you want
I'm trying to look at you the whole time.
Thank you for doing that.
So
You can scoot it towards me if it's more comfy.
I'm kind of going into straight detail about
If you want, you can just face us, you know?
what? I
Until
didn't.
they happen.
So we can't have nice things.
Okay, let's move my chair. Okay, let's get it. Ken was actually
Do
going.
you want to change your seating or do you want
Anna,
to?
stop. Okay. Mom, stop.
I don't do that.
Throw his dogs out. Okay.
I hope
Gonna have to
you see
blur
my
those.
It's a caution. Sell those, Mom.
We put the book in front of you.
Okay. All right. I know. I was very interested in.
I know,
What
I
Ken,
saw
I need to
it.
like move so I can talk.
I just want to call out that I understand that if someone deaf from the deaf community is watching this, I'm 100% coming across as ignorant, and probably is everything all good? You're okay. So you want to? Oh, your charger! I just don't want you to break your charger.
Okay, Mom. We're gonna start getting giggly if you don't stop messing around. I know. Kenny's speaking out
I'm
laughing.
freaking my neck.
It's ignorant.
Okay.
You don't know how face you over.
She has a crick on her neck.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. It's like cutting out.
Okay.
Kenny, stop
Okay.
moving. I feel better.
All right, we good?
Yes.
Okay.
How's your neck?
It's still crooked.
Well,
switch
now,
with me?
now I'm thinking about my
You wanna
neck.
switch with me, Mom? Right, like now my left side of my neck is done.
Should we switch?
Mom,
can
it's
switch.
Instead of looking this way, I'll be looking this way. It'll keep it out or the other way.
Like halfway
Come
through the
here.
podcast, we'll switch. Are we doing a live switch?
Come on,
We're
guys.
playing musical chairs. Dun, 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 dun.
All right,
Yeah, I don't
fine.
think that's making the cut. Sorry. I don't think your musical.
These are the
It wasn't making the cut until you said that. I think I have to include it.
These are the bloopers that we laugh about.
Yeah, but only the like people behind the scenes laugh at the bloopers.
Yeah, her 5-minute section of moving the chair around is not. Okay,
I
is this
had a-
okay to sit like this, Kenny?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The bloopers, like, yeah, don't include bloopers. Maybe. Okay.
No,
Anyway,
just for us.
it's for us.
Okay, this is, okay. I can't
Oh my
let's be
God.
True Biz here. Let's
Can you hear yourself?
Okay,
Not
sorry.
as good as mine.
Okay,
Mom,
I'm
did you
not
have
gonna
a-
adjust
Can you
it
hear
up.
yours better, Mom?
What the heck's on your phone? You have a chunk of like toothpaste or something.
Is that
That's like really loud.
Is that better?
That was 150.
I think it was a cocoon, a caterpillar.
Mom, trigger word. Okay.
The word isn't triggering, right?
No,
You
that
just trigger me. Okay, can you wait? If you turn me up, is it gonna be really loud on your podcast?
No, it's just what you're hearing.
Okay.
It's just
Okay,
what you're
perfect.
hearing in the microphone. Make sure when you talk though, just a pro tip, bring the mic to your
It's
mouth.
like really loud.
have it here, so it's harder to hear you.
Yeah, bring it like right
Oh,
here.
you mean like right now?
No, like when you talk, you're like moving.
Okay, so if any deaf people are watching this,
They can.
What I was trying to do is be self-aware that I am coming across, I am ignorant to this topic, and I just want to call it out that I am trying to expose my ignorance to at least show the journey that I am going through as someone, being someone who wants to be an advocate and be an ally. I'm just exposing my learning journey, which I just want to say I'm coming across ignorant. I just want to realize that, and I am. So that was just a call out.
no, definitely.
Okay.
I think all of us are, because we don't have that experience.
So I'm trying to be vulnerable, but it's just be honest where I am, but I want to be honest. I just wanted to call that out.
Well, thank you for being raw and open with us because that's hard to do, to expose yourself. And it's hard to do that. Most people, to be vulnerable, it's hard for people to be vulnerable. And he's just being honest.
Yeah, you
Right.
definitely have to be open about it. And
I feel like you have to create a culture where that's valued, where being vulnerable, because if you're going to be open and vulnerable, someone can't laugh at you and put you down. They can't be laughing at you. So it just,
Yeah, I think that goes for all of us, even me and Hannah too. Like we still don't have that experience, and I think we're just speaking on what we've learned and what we've seen.
Right.
Because we haven't. It's been 3 years. That hasn't been our whole lives.
Right. But I am talking at y'all like you're the experts.
yeah, definitely not. And there's
Compared to you and I,
They're just
they're
experts in the
definitely
family.
experts in our
Because
family.
they sign. Go ahead.
But like in our school, there's 2 different ASL teachers, and there's definitely like different ways they sign and stuff like that because they
Really?
grew up in different places and stuff like that. So any
But both in America, both ASL, American Sign Language.
Oh yeah, and they're completely different.
You're
They-
kidding.
The way they sign.
the way they sign,
Are they different? So we're Italian as well. So there's different dialects depending if we're
Is it
northern
is
Italy.
it like a north versus
southern?
south thing? What's the difference?
Yeah.
Do you know? Could you say what it is?
I don't know. They just grew up in different parts. I think
It sounds like dialect.
It
For-
is.
Right.
It
Speaking
depends
like- okay.
on where they are, like how you say like sausage or stuff
Yeah,
like that.
I was just trying to figure out like where the different dialects stem from in the deaf community. Is it north south? Is it every city? I was trying to figure out what level is just a dialect change.
I can't speak on that because I'm not fully sure. I just know they're not from the same place and they do sign differently, but everyone has a different sign. Even if you watch like me and Hannah, she signs very like, we just have different ways we sign.
Y'all even sign differently?
Yeah.
everyone signs a little bit differently because that's just
But
How
you
we
can still
naturally-
understand it, or you have to learn the person. Like if is like
like we have like interpersonals, which is 2 people signing for like a project, and if you get paired with someone you don't normally sign with, it's definitely like different. You have to get like
A feel.
a feel for how they sign and stuff like that, but you can definitely understand them. It just takes a little bit of time to
Yeah, and re-signing stuff like asking like again or I don't understand that. Like it's normal to ask someone, be like, can you know how you, I'm like, oh, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. It's like, oh, can you sign that again? I didn't understand it.
yeah, because there was that part in the book like way later on, but where I believe it is Charlie, the female's name.
Yes.
She's in the hospital when her earpiece blew up, which we will get to. But I just remember the nurse coming in signing, and apparently she was like signing super aggressively as if she was like yelling things, and she was trying not to laugh. Like, why is this person asking me so aggressively if I want apple juice or whatever? I don't remember that. But
I remember that.
yeah, it's just yeah, I do.
where do I want to go next?
There's so much to cover.
There's a lot to cover. While we're here on the earpiece blowing up, and now let me get to this first. Going back to if signing is a disability or if it is a strength, a power, there's that whole part about Alexander Graham Bell, who the book starts off with a quote from Alexander Graham Bell, who founded the telephone. I'm assuming. Is that true? Does anyone know? Is that a fact?
I have no idea.
I think Buddy founded the telephone. That's what he's
I have
known
no
for.
idea.
Illinois Bell, that was one of the first.
Yes, you heard that too.
So, Mom's
Alexander Graham Bell founded the.
We
Confirmed.
we can fact check it, but
Okay, well, let's just make that assumption. Somewhere in that sphere. But he starts off with a book of how he wanted to eradicate the deaf community because he saw it as a drain on society. Something that train of thought.
Right.
We would get to one of the author's discussion questions, which, by the way, if you do choose this book for a book club, it's great because they have discussion questions built into the book by the author. The discussion questions are this, and I think it gets to, is this a disability? If not, and some other topics as well. But here's the two discussion questions, and feel free if anyone speaks to you to answer it. What are the medical community's ethical obligations when it comes to preserving human diversity? And at what line does the practice of designer babies become unethical, and who gets to decide?
that's a lot of questions. Maybe break that up.
So if I were to even start with, how about first let's just start with the topic of if it's a disability or if it's not. And there's some other discussions that maybe address that question better. For example, if everyone signed, would it be a disability? So let me just ask you, do you see being deaf as a disability?
To start off, I'd say when I first started with sign and first started hearing it, I thought it was a disability. But honestly, seeing where it's taken me and Hannah and where it's taken the community, and even on ASL or even on TikTok, like where ASL has shown up and how much it teaches me every single day, I think it's a strength. Absolutely 100%. But that's because I've been through 3 years of ASL.
And let me say this, I also learned that in a lot, like it's like in psychology books that teach you how to raise their kids, it's a big thing now to teach your kids at an early age how to sign because they're able to express themselves a bit more. And a lot of times, terrible twos, a lot of times they're so frustrated because they don't know how to communicate. And so if you learn to sign, it'll learn them how to get their emotions out. Quick note, I also thought it was funny, great point the author brought up, that the teacher, the doctor, sees that kids in their teenagers, it's similar to their terrible twos because they're starting to dive into topics they don't know how to talk about yet or express themselves, which was a pretty interesting point. But that was a side note. So I totally agree that signing is something that I see value in doing to everyone because it's just another way to communicate yourself.
Especially in our case as well, when you had mentioned Nani earlier, Nani is going to be 91 and she is little by little losing her hearing. I think a lot of it's selective hearing, but that is an issue. And how wonderful would it be if
She could just
she
sign.
knew that and we could just sign with her, because if you use it from the beginning of your life, then it's always an asset. And then when you start losing your hearing, it wouldn't be so detrimental like it is right now. She can't hear, so she's just okay.
And that has to be less intellectually stimulating if you can't really hear anyone, which means you're not going to be as sharp on your thoughts, which means I can see that being the path to slowly deteriorating, which is often a precursor to many
Dementia
diseases
and-
like dementia.
It's true.
When you stop working out that muscle.
Yes, that's actually medical. That's a fact. That's a medical fact.
That's a fact.
That is a fact.
Medical
Perfect.
Very scientific.
Here's my by definition, not having one of your senses is a disability.
Correct.
You are missing a sense. However, I don't think that it makes you any less of a person. I don't think that doesn't mean you can't be a better person as if you had hearing. I think you could be an even better person. I don't think that takes anything away from sign language. I love that, and I think that's a great result of that. My biggest hesitation, however, and this is again, this is like what I'm thinking is, one of my favorite quotes is, the difference between the right word and almost the right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. If that makes sense.
Let me think about that again.
So the difference between, yes, I'll say it again. So the difference between the right word, like when you get the right word to articulate something, and almost the right word, is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. Meaning
Just
that
doesn't
it's just
fit.
so
It's
much more
such a
powerful when you
right.
find that, when you have those moments, you find that perfect word to articulate exactly how you're feeling.
I
And
agree with
ultimately, that is what language is ways to
What is
communicate
that?
our
Is
consciousness.
that lightning or lightning bug?
No, that's neither.
What is that? You can't do that in front of us. You have to share.
No, it was just like in our class, it was just like a funny thing. It was like, it was something that everyone loved, and it was like a big, like, it was like a statement.
What does it mean?
It means, it's like pot, it's like finally, and you have to go.
Yeah,
It's like,
I feel
finally.
that.
Like, yeah, like you hit that, you're like lightning, boom.
Yeah, does sign language always, does it always make sense? Like the hand signals, like it makes sense in terms of what the words mean?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
book is like book. So most of the, most of it.
Are there some things it's like, why is this that?
Yeah, even our ESL teacher would be like, oh, so what can we correlate this to? She's like, absolutely nothing. I don't know why. It's like that
I
is
feel like that's for every language. Every language has those.
But ASL structure is different and stuff like that. So if I'm speaking and like signing, like it's different. Like
it's not like an English sentence.
I would structure it differently from when I'm just speaking like this. So it's definitely.
Yeah, and so I was just saying, I'm like, can you articulate as fully your thoughts, your consciousness, all of that as you can with the English language through ASL? And maybe you can, like I said, I don't know. For example, all airlines require pilots, even in other countries, to speak English. There's a famous example where it was like another country. It was like, for example, Korea Air. I know it's not Korea Air, but it's another country. And they had, I think it was something like plane crashes year after year. And they're in the airline industry, one crash is very serious. And they found out the way they mitigated those crashes is because they weren't speaking English. When they're speaking another language, there was not only cultural norms where it was less likely for someone to interfere if something was wrong, but English was the chosen language in the airline industry because you're more able to, whatever it is in that process, more clearly articulate yourself and interject when something's wrong. So for me, I was using that as an example to try to show the power of
interesting.
English
There's
to express yourself fully. And I'm like, can you do that as thoroughly with ASL? I want to hear your thoughts.
Even in the book, I know that she says, I think it's the word being or been, like she mentions a few times throughout the book that there's words that she wants to say but doesn't know how to say them.
or it's just not in the language. Like some sign language, you don't sign like some of the words in like your regular sentence. You
Right.
just don't need it in
When
You don't
signing,
need
yeah, it doesn't. You don't need it to make the sentence make sense. Like
Yeah.
the signs.
what you
It's like you leave out like the or
Yeah.
something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what you're saying with the airlines, how there's like the universal, you need to know English. In
Mhm.
ASL, there's many different like sign languages, but there's like
Yeah.
a universal sign language that like everyone
There is.
can go by.
There is.
And it's not ASL?
No.
Completely
It's-
different?
Yeah, I
I
think
think so. I've never seen it. I know there's universal ASL, and obviously it's different from American Sign Language because it's its own thing. But yeah, I don't know why we all don't use universal
I
ASL.
wish.
that's why I asked my teacher, I was like, why don't we all just learn the universal so when we go and travel and stuff like that and we meet a deaf person, it's like we can speak with them no matter where we are, but it's just like when you travel or something, it's you learn their language where you're traveling. So,
Yeah, there's always that classic debate. Oh, I wish we could, the whole world could just have one language. It's okay, whose language are we choosing? And it's obviously we're gonna say English. It just doesn't work like that. Do y'all think that, going back to my question on, do you think you can express yourself as thoroughly in American Sign Language, because that's what you've seen so far, as you can in the English language?
I think absolutely, if not more. You're using your body language. You're using your face. You're using everything just like you do in English. I think you can express it more because you're showing your emotions more.
Oh, that's such a
you
good
know?
point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just
Dang, you just changed my mind in the moment.
I watched,
yeah.
I had a in like house field trip of a famous deaf man come in named Peter Cook, and he did like a skit where it was completely voice off, like nothing, and I felt like more emotion and like I feel like I could connect way more because he just put so much of that emotion without using words, and it was just crazy. There was just so much emotion, and I feel like I could relate and stuff like that. It was definitely, and with like even when you're watching a play when like they're speaking, I feel like I could definitely connect more when they're not speaking.
I
Wow.
can understand that makes sense to me. I'm going back to last year when we went to Italy, when you took me for my 50th birthday and you took me to the opera. We don't know Italian, and Italians are very expressive with,
Yeah.
we're always with our hands, but at the opera, it was obviously all in Italian, and we're in Italy. And Kenny, we were both crying. Like Kenny and I were both like full on crying. We had no clue what they were saying, but I can relate to what you're saying. Was completely sound
Just
off.
feeling the energy.
Feeling that, the passion, their expressions, their face, their voice inflections.
To say the least.
He was
To say
definitely
the
like
absolute least.
So I-
educating, yeah, he's like in the education, he educates like college students, and like him coming in with less experienced students and stuff like that. It was definitely like he had so much emotion, and like he wanted to teach us, and it was just a way different experience. I thought I was gonna be like lost with what was going on, but even when I didn't know what he was signing, his emotions just made everything like come together and make sense, even when I didn't know what he was saying.
Mm.
So I definitely think absolutely it can show much more than the English language of just like speaking or yelling or something like that.
So 3 years into ASL, are y'all like at a good point now where you think you could? Do you guys want to keep learning it?
I definitely want to do it in college and maybe have a future career like on the side. Or
Wow.
I want to be a physical therapist, and I want to like work with children that are deaf and stuff like that. Like I definitely want to work that into my future because it's been a part since ASL 1 freshman year, and I love it. And
3 years and you love it.
yeah, it's definitely changed like everything. I want to do it in my future.
What has it changed?
I don't know, I just have a different mindset towards people, and I feel like I've been open to different, I don't even know.
It's just like that feeling. It's just like an out of body experience of understanding like a different perspective, and it makes you just feel so much more. It's hard to explain. It's just like the second I step into that classroom, I want to be there.
I love that.
School's always been a struggle to go to and find like passion and like with teachers and like finding the want to be there and learn. And it's like with that class, there's always a drive to be there, always a drive to learn more because it's just so amazing.
Is that drive that makes you want to be there? What is causing that? Is that because you are creating meaning because you're understanding a traditionally underrepresented community? Is it something else?
I think it's more of just, I think of what you said like that, and like being able to understand and relate to what's going on. Not obviously relate, but understand what they're going through. Because I don't know. There was just no experience with deaf people. And now, like when I travel and where I go places, I want to meet a deaf person and I want to sign with them. My friend got to sign with someone at Starbucks, stuff like that. I want to be able to sign with people, and I don't want it to just go away after school with math. I'm just like, okay, whatever. ASL, I want to be in my future. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I get up and I'm like driven to be like, I want to go out and I want to find someone I can sign with, because it's like I know every day of their life is like a really hard struggle to find people to communicate with, and it's like finding those people in life that you can connect to and be like, even I was out with Anish at 45 degrees, and this family walked in that was
45 degrees bubble tea shot.
yeah, and I walked in with a completely deaf family there, and they were having their little discussion, but I got to talk to the girl and be like, hi, like, how are you? And it's her face lit up. I gave her like $1 million. Seeing her so happy is like that drive to be like, I want to find more people and be able to speak and advocate for them, with them. Yeah.
Is that the time that the girl, like the dad was yelling? And can you explain that story a little?
Yeah, so I was sitting, eating and drinking my boba, and the family walked in, and I had just learned like how people get signed when they're mad. They're more aggressive, their body language.
You just learned it.
Yeah, and when he walked in, he was signing, I'm gonna sit in the car, I'm not waiting, like all this stuff, and the mom stopped, you're upsetting her, like all this stuff, and she was like crying a little bit and putting her head down, and I was like, oh, hi, are you okay? Like stuff like that, and she's like, yeah, like seeing like that her face go from like upset. Obviously families go through it, like they're stressed out, whatever, and seeing her go from like a crying state to like her eyes like wide open signing, it's just an out of body experience. It's like it's just an opportunity that like people it's just like I want more people to be able to have that experience. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story. You really changed the trajectory of her entire evening.
And that's powerful.
That is powerful.
What Haley do you want people to experience more?
Understanding deaf culture
Understanding
more.
deaf culture.
I think people are very blind to it. You grow up in a hearing place, everything around you's hearing. There's no experience unless you're taking a class where you get that experience. And you're missing an entire part of the world.
Yeah.
Like it's such a strong knit community where they all stand for each other. It's just like having that experience, it's just something you have to have. Like it's just something I want people to be able to experience.
Do we know numbers on what percentage of the world is deaf?
I have no idea.
I'm just curious. It's okay.
I can always look it up.
It's okay. We don't have to look it up right now. No, it's not important. I actually wanted to move to what you were saying about wanting people to understand the deaf community. For me, because I haven't done that, but to me, that reminds me of I have witnessed the power of just meeting people where they are and encouraging them to be their full selves, because that's something I do at work. Like just be yourself. It's better for you and it's better for everyone else.
Yeah.
And fully understanding someone, like listening to someone when they need an ear to listen to. And so, yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
Yeah, even on that being themselves, I think that's a hard thing for people to understand because when you're living in a world where everything's open to you, I think with her whole girlfriend experience or stuff like that, she's struggling with being not understood, not heard. Her drive every day when she gets up is to make people understand where she's coming from. She's struggling with that morning to night every single day, and that is something she has to be passionate about so other people don't have to struggle with that in the future. That's hard to understand when you've never experienced anything like that. It's hard to be like, okay, it's getting too much, but it's like living with that every single day. It's a big passion you have.
So does that give you gratitude for your ability to hear and not having those same struggles? Do you think about that on a day-to-day?
Yeah, definitely. We had a project and we had an activity where like people had to put on noise canceling headphones and try to lip read because in our book Charlie had to do that for a while trying to understand stuff, and it's so frustrating and like the activity no one could understand it. Like half of them were like, what are you saying? And it was definitely like eye-opening. Like I can hear everything that you're saying, and like Nani losing her hearing, it's just like, it's a struggle and I couldn't imagine it, but knowing that I can sign, it's definitely like reassuring, I guess.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's making you more grateful, increasing the gratitude. I love, Hannah, that you share that's something you may want to weave into your career because of how meaningful it's been.
100%, yeah.
Haley, it's something that you said is very important. Out-of-body experience. I think you want everything to experience.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel the same as Hannah too. I want it to be like my minor in college. I definitely want to take it to somewhere else, definitely farther than just next year. It's become like a huge passion and something that I'm so grateful to be able to take at NEQA. So I definitely do not want to waste that. I want to take that into college.
It sounds like a great way to create value and real meaning and better the world.
Yeah, I was talking to our teacher and she's like, if you guys do pursue this with your future, there's many jobs that people need interpreters for or deaf allies to help with that job, like in emergency situations, interpreters for doctor's appointments, stuff like that. So there's many jobs, and you could definitely do that because we need people that are interpreters in that field, stuff like that.
Needed.
Yes.
Yeah, going off that, she told us a story about some lady was in the hospital pregnant and she was like asking for an interpreter. She needs an interpreter. She has no communication with these doctors. Imagine going through that experience of birth of your own kid and you don't understand what the doctors are saying. It's like they're on like certain times, certain hours. It's like not having that experience. Do you know how that's
That
just
must be terrifying.
Think about having us like someone putting a blindfold on in headphones and being like, okay, just, we're not going to speak to you, just, do your thing. Like, it's terrible. You're taking that experience away from them. That's something
That comfort you don't have because no one's there for you. You feel alone, like no one's taught, you can't understand anything in a very scary time.
Are you guys, so it sounds like you at least want to minor in college to start off with next steps, and you want to as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Is there anything else, you're juniors in high school now, is there anything else you're as sure of that you want to continue in college than ASL? Maybe gymnastics, for example, or other subjects? Is there anything else you also want to do this in college?
Physical therapy I want to do because as a gymnast, and I want to do gymnastics in college, but
Okay.
as a gymnast, I'm at physical therapy half of my life. So I just love physical therapy and how the community is and stuff like that. And
Okay, so you like the community and you like the positive impact a physical therapist has on
and I like helping
rehabilitating?
people. Yeah, I like helping people from ground to up and seeing their progression and just like helping them. Yeah. So.
But what about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely sure on the ASL, PT, OT, stuff like that, going through all the medical stuff with gymnastics, all the mental side. I've also thought about doing something the mental side because growing up, like having all of those experiences through gymnastics, how brutal it is on your body, your mental, all stuff like that. I definitely want to be into something where it's mental or physical
Okay.
therapy, gymnastics stuff. I don't know about college right now with my body and stuff like that. It just depends on where life takes me in the next year, whether I have an injury, whether I don't, how I'm progressing mentally, physically, all stuff like that. But ASL, PT, OT, stuff like that is for sure something I want to do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I ask because this starts to uncover insight into what you think is meaningful, like at the end of the day, what is really important and where can you really create value. And I see with ASL, the mental space, gymnastics, physical therapy, it seems like those are starting to be areas that you think are actually important ways to spend your time and giving back and what creates meaning. Because when you guys landed in Houston today, welcome. And one of the first things, I can't remember who asked me. I think was it you, Haley? And I'm sorry if it was you or not, but you guys asked me like, what do you actually do out here?
That was me.
Yeah, that was you. And it's taken me a lot of time to figure out what I actually want to do. And I realized to be fulfilled with what I actually want to do, I have to think about how I create meaning. And I joined a men's club. The podcast I released yesterday was with the guys in my men's club, episode 3. But we talk a lot about when you go from this phase of, I unfortunately got caught where I was spending a lot of my time just like partying with friends to fill my time. And eventually I got to a stage when I went in the real world and tried to create value and hold myself to a certain standard. I found out that all of that was not bettering myself. And I was just using it just to spend my time. And it's, if you were to cut that out, I really have to think about, okay, what am I, if it's not, it was once you put away drinking, it's what do you want to do? And to fill in my time, I was like, how do I actually create meaning? And so it's something I've been thinking a lot about, and I love hearing your guys' answer.
Yeah, even with gymnastics, gymnastics is ending in 5 years if you do it in college, 1 year if you do it in high school. It's like, if I don't have gymnastics, when I'm injured, what do I do with my time?
Yeah.
And it's, since injuries have been so much during gymnastics, you have those come to Jesus moments where it's, I have 4 hours. What am I supposed to do?
Those moments, though, that gap that you have. And I recently heard for people that when you are injured, it is a sign of strength if you can fill in that time. Which is, yeah, I think I've just seen the people out, I do jujitsu, and you can tell the people who do, that's all they do in jujitsu, and specifically when people get injured, they're like, man, life is horrible, I don't know what I'm doing. And you just see the people that don't really know how to fill their time. That is a very hard thing to do when you have that big hole, right?
I definitely struggle with that. When I'm injured, gymnastics is pretty much my whole life. Like when I quit and I was taken away from it, it literally completely changed me as gymnastics is me. If you look up the definition of gymnastics, it's Hannah.
Yeah, you look up Hannah gymnastics.
Without it, it's literally my personality. Like without it, it's very hard to not define me as gymnastics because it's been my whole life and our whole family's life pretty much with vacations and everything.
And so when you took that away, were you able to find out who you were other than gymnastics, or is that something you still don't know if you have a full answer to that?
I did not find myself because I'm back in gymnastics and I craved it 24/7.
Yeah.
I literally, even
How old were you when you started gymnastics?
4 or
years
5.
old.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just like craving gymnastics. What we crave, it's like the discipline, the ability to
The structure.
the structure. I
Yeah.
have a certain thing to do and I have that to do. And
Because
it's
you're
like
growing as a person, you're
I-
evolving.
I definitely think gymnastics taught me a lot of discipline and how to manage my time and how if you work hard, you will get what you want and all of the, yes, discipline 100%.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because what gymnastics did for you is you were evolving as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's funny because when I took away drinking, what did I do? I returned. That's when the book club started. I now have the space. I filled it in with books. And for me, it's interesting. I found myself, I returned to something that I used to love doing as a kid that I would have never thought how important that was. And that's why I love hearing your guys' answers now, because if you ever feel lost in life, if gymnastics ever stops or it changes the role it has in your life, look at some of you. I found out that my answer was a lot of the things that created meaning as a kid. Like I didn't even realize, and you have a whole new passion for it now because you see it differently and you realize, yes, I love doing these things. But for example, gymnastics, you love because it evolved and taught discipline. But it's not gymnastics who you are, it's that you love what it does and the place it has, and you can find that you can actually still get those same benefits of discipline in other ways. It doesn't just have to be that one thing that defines you. It's more just a way to express where you want to be and how you want to evolve.
Yeah, I definitely find myself within gymnastics and that community of working hard and pushing other people when you're on their team and stuff like that to be better and do all that stuff. And I'm definitely a very competitive person, so gymnastics definitely has pushed me to find myself and who I really am and stuff like that. Yeah.
And Mom, I want to hear from you because I didn't even think about this, but we're always changing. But when I think about you and I have conversations a lot on what you're going to do when Hannah and Haley leave for college, because there's going to be a lot of this new open space. So I predict that you will be in the same space that I recently went through, that they are doing that gymnastics. When I think about the value that you create, that motherly whatnot, I see it as still something you can do, with just not the way that you used to doing it. Have you thought about, do you see yourself coming to have to come to this place of an empty space, of having this new empty space in your life, and how you're going to fulfill it? And are you looking forward to it? Are you worried about it? What are your thoughts about that change from when all your kids are no longer in the house?
They call it what? Empty nest syndrome. First of all,
Yes,
Ari's still in the house. Ari's still living with us, and so I think she'll still be there. And that
if
could
I
change.
bring her to Houston, she really liked this.
Well, you bring her, we might follow. I don't know.
That's a big thing. Dad literally says he's gonna follow us to college for gymnastics.
And I think they're both serious about that.
We're not joking.
Concerning a little bit.
A little bit.
But I think what would be most healthy is that you'll find your empty nest syndrome. Tell me what your thoughts.
It is coming around the corner. It's a summer and a year away of school, and it is something I think about, but I'm not afraid of it. I'm excited for the next step. I have no idea, because right now my entire life is I can't wait to make 3 different breakfasts and 4 different dinners. I still do that every day. I do everything just to make sure you guys are eating healthy, whatever. Taking you to 25 different doctor's appointments, physical therapy, that's all we've been doing. So I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to land.
Sure.
I've been out of the corporate world for so long. I don't know if that's something I plan on going back into. I don't know. It's because then I'll actually be able to focus on me. It's so easy as a mother to not lose yourself, but I enjoy putting my kids first. Like I live for my babies and making you happy. And my way of showing love is cooking for you guys and talking and praying and just everything that you guys know I do all the time for you guys. I'm not really sure where my place. I pray literally every day for God to help guide me, give me some type of guidance, show me where I'm supposed to be next. Like, where am I supposed to be in the world of possibly going back to work?
Yeah.
Where can I add value? You talk about adding value. And my background is in the corporate world in sales and marketing. And I want to add value. I'm not going to just work for a paycheck. I'm not,
Right, you're not a machine. You
I'm
want to
not
be
a machine.
yourself,
Right.
and add extra value that only you can bring.
It's so funny. And I've been thinking about that for a while. And it's funny because even just little things are always creeping up in my head. Do it like when Nani comes over. I do her nails and I give her a pedicure and a manicure and I like do her hair. And she's, I feel like it's salon day when I come by you. I'm like, I love to serve people. Like that's who I am. I find great fulfillment in that. And so I thought, what if I got my license again? Because you have to, I was a licensed cosmetologist a million years ago before I even graduated from college. And I'm like, what if I actually thought about doing like for older people, like Nani, doing like a mobile service, like they have a mobile pet service where they come to your
That
house, they
sounds
wash your
like
dog.
big value.
But I would
Well
love
said.
to,
Yeah.
you know, do it for older people, like go to retirement homes where they can't get out of their retirement home. But I would
Yeah.
love to sit down
Wow.
with someone's grandmother or great grandmother and talk to them
I
and
love
learn them
that.
and do their nails and maybe just do their hair, do
make their day.
haircuts.
Make their day.
And they would make my day because I'd be learning about them and hearing their life experiences and seeing pictures of their kids and grandkids. And that's just one of the budding ideas that
Wow.
that's one of the newest ideas. So I have no idea where life is going to take me or I have no idea, but I'm excited for it.
I love that. I'm
Very
excited to
excited.
see where it is, and I
Because-
know it will unfold in the best way. I know everything will be okay. And I love what you said about it is important because you love doing things for your kids. And I recently thought about I like doing things for other people as well and just trying to strike that balance, make sure you put yourself first, right? So that you can give to the community back better. You need your own oxygen mask so you can help others type
I
of
love
thing.
that. Mhm.
And I just love this whole conversation because I think that this whole point about what really causes that meaning, like the root of who you are and what you do, I think that could potentially find your answer. So you love giving back to your kids, and although it used to be cooking meals for us, eventually when we're gone, we'll be eating meals on our own. You can
Or maybe cooking for people, anything. I don't know. I want to serve people and make them happy. And I make people happy by cooking for them. I'm Italian. That's what I want to do. I always want to feed everyone. That's how your friends know me. Your friends know me. It's how everyone knows
Right, it was
me,
cooking, and I was just thinking maybe you still provide value to us, but maybe it's in a different way. Maybe rather than cooking, maybe it's financially or just some other type of mechanism to express your value and learning a new. Yeah, you just never know.
I'm open for it. I'm ready and I'm open for it.
This whole topic of life always changing. Another quote I love from an artist named Gold Hayes says, "Change is always good. You just have to embrace it." You have to embrace it. Bringing it back to the book, page 161, the main character, February, her mom passes away in this book towards the end. And there's a part where she's at the retirement home, and her mom gives her a thumbs up, and her mom, and so the main character and her mom, who's about to pass away, are talking, and she gets a little bit choked up. She has to press her tongue hard against the roof of her mouth to prevent her from crying because she thought of the day she left for graduate school, her parents staying at the end of the driveway. So she thinks of reminiscing. And I just was curious for everyone how you guys think about like these stages of life. Do y'all think about this ever? Y'all think about it once a year about the stages of life? I'll reflect as an example. You could think about how you think about stages of life and change. You know, I've thought about it a lot recently, just thinking about the decisions I make today are going to impact how well I can show up as a grandpa. I just thought like Nani is just so powerful to so many people. If I make good decisions today, I can be a better poppy one day. And that part of my story is equally as important as it is today. Like I know in society, we have this thing in pop culture where we value like teens and 20s, like and at least in the artist community. And once you get old, you're just thrown out because you're older. But one of the most influential producer ever, Rick Rubin, who's made stuff with Johnny Cash, rappers today, like Red Hot Chili, just all these producers. One cool thing that he did was when Johnny Cash, there was a point in his life where like he had his kind of career, and at one point it was low. He's working at like dinner clubs and in the low point, and he brought this skill of bringing Johnny Cash. He's like, we're going to create the best album ever created. And he did. He sold the most popular album, and he was just talking. It's such a shame that people just throw out people get old, at least in the artist industry, just because they're old when really their voice is different and they have a better perspective. So I just feel I've heard so much talk about how, oh man, live up your 20s now because after that it just goes all downhill. I've gotten that advice from colleagues at my work, okay? And it's not people I really resonate with. I've never really resonated with that. And so I'm trying to get away from that because life's going to be a lot more fun if I'm looking forward to the next 40, 50 years. And so that is how I think about change in my life. It's I'm okay with things changing because I'm just as excited for the circumstances to change and show up in this new way. I cannot wait to be the only person who acts like me when I'm 80 years old. If I'm lucky enough to make it there, I want to be just uniquely me. And someone would be like, I've never seen an 80-year-old do that. I can't wait to do that.
That's
So,
skinny.
Yeah, that's definitely you, Penny.
That's
If there's
Penny.
anyone in the world,
That's,
definitely
you know, but it's a I have to consciously think about equally valuing all of that and strategically thinking about the decisions I make today will butterfly effect and change me at 80, which by the way, something that completely changed my perspective is your full story is not even when you die. Let's say I die, not even when you die at 80, it's really you highly impacted your grandkids after you. So really your full story is potentially 100 years after you as well. And so many people limit like the impact they want to have by just thinking it ends when I die, when really it's going to be a lot larger. For example, if I'm financially stable when I'm 80, the impact I can have on my family as opposed to now. How do you guys think about change? Has that come up lately? Do you guys think about it?
I definitely think about it. So this is funny at church. So I think about it every single week, Sunday at church, because that's just time where I find myself and I just sit down and like their thoughts just run through my head and I think about where gymnastics will take me, where school's gonna take me, my next grade, my next test, stuff like that. Like the little things of change of a grade or a point or something like that, from all the way to moving to college, where I'm gonna live, where I'm going to college, all these things. So I definitely think about it at least once a week.
At church. That's
Yeah.
how you find interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's every single night when I'm in bed because I try to put my phone down about half an hour before because with like my migraines now, it's like I have to have that time before where I'm just like, oh, that's my phone. Actually, literally talking about my migraines, that's literally my migraine medicine. It's funny.
Do you want to stop and take it?
Oh, no, I'm good. But yeah, and the other thing is like when I'm
funny.
going through, right, I'm like,
weird.
that's weird. Even when I was in the hospital with mom, when I was going through like the hard times, that's when I truly sit down and realize, okay, I want Nani to be closer to us. I want her to be with us. Like I want to go reach out to you more. Like I talk to mom about everything. Like I feel like I'm farther apart from Kenny. Like since he moved, it's like I want to reach out more. I want to be closer. I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, I talk to him like once a week when you're on the phone with mom.
Right.
I want it to be closer where I feel that connection, like it's my brother and sister. So talking to her, it's like, yeah, it's definitely like I lose sight in that because I'm in school, I'm in gymnastics.
Right, you're so caught up in that rat race type of thing that you forget about what really
Definitely.
matters.
The second it like something takes me out like migraines, I go through like a whole refresh of state. But definitely every single night, but definitely like when something's going on, that's one of my big life changes. I'm like listening, I'm like, okay, I want to make a change in this, I want to make a change in that.
That is really interesting because that was the big impact of the coronavirus in the workforce. Like everyone's working, and then as soon as the coronavirus happened, everyone like went to their families. Everyone realized what really mattered. My company now, almost everyone works from home a lot more because people have more time with family. You realize what's really important. Haley, you said you had that after you were in the hospital. If you're comfortable with sharing, I'm curious if you would consider that like a near-death experience. I don't know how serious things got recently, and if it was, did that change your perspective at all? Did that change any of your habits?
Yeah, so I'm definitely comfortable about talking about it. If you're comfortable with me talking about it, yeah. After Hannah had her seizures, that experience felt almost near death to me because watching her in the hospital bed made me consider being done. If she's done, I'm done. Like in that kind of way. And after having that experience, like I've really looked at every single thing in my life completely different. Like she'll look at me and I'll just cry. And why are you looking at me and just crying? It's like seeing you standing there alive, like talking, walking, looking at me is like a huge life thing to me. Like it's
That's amazing.
right. I go through life so fast and it's so amazing. You're level 10 gymnast, but I'm just happy to see you looking at me and making contact, like you can respond
Because
to
it was
me.
not guaranteed.
And as soon as something like that happens, it's like it's a huge wake up call. And like through my migraines and stuff, I do look at it now, I'm like, you were being extra, but I did feel like after watching Hannah have seizures, like in the hospital, when I was in there with migraines, I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna die. I feel like my brain's gonna explode. I feel like I'm having an aneurysm. I feel like I have a brain tumor. Something's gonna take me out. And sitting in the MRI machines, when I had so many tests done, I went through like all of the life experiences of like, okay, I need to eat healthier, I need to reach out more, there's just so many things I want to do better. And it's like going through that really did completely change that. I don't know why it took having a near-death experience to realize that stuff, but it
You
did.
had to zoom out a little bit.
You get caught up, you're in school from 7:25 to whatever in gymnastics. It's like when I take a step back, it's like really eye-opening to, okay, I'm lucky that I'm even here today because people don't get that.
I didn't have the same experience. Obviously, I was the one having seizures, so I didn't remember half the stuff, and I didn't know how big of an impact it had on them because I was sleeping most of the time and didn't remember anything. But, like,
Comatose state.
yeah, there you go. But ever seeing even dad, who's more not as emotional as the rest, he was even affected by it, and that's a rare occurrence. It was very eye-opening, and just looking at them, and anytime something little comes up that reminds you of it, they get very sensitive to talk about it. It definitely affected them more obviously than me because I wasn't awake obviously, but also with losing our friend and stuff like that, it definitely made me reach out more and stuff like that because it was like that was the first ever experience of losing someone my age that I really knew and like had a connection to, and it was like I need to reach out more, I need to talk to people, I need to like just get out there and talk to people because you never know when you're going to lose someone that's that close to you. And if I would have just said hi or reached out that one time, and that's always in the back of my mind, like I need to reach out and say hi and see how people are doing because you never know when it's going to be the last time.
Yeah, that is when you practice fitness, you can practice physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness. For me, practicing that is telling your loved ones you love them every single day.
Yeah.
Not as spiritually fit as I want to be. Thank you guys for saying that. Yeah, I'm very grateful we're all here because yeah, it's not guaranteed. That's the thing. Like we're not all gonna like one day one of us are not gonna be here. The only thing you have guaranteed is yourself. And oh man, that's the gratitude for the little things I think is beautiful. It's amazing, and yeah, it makes me people all the time. Yeah, like, you look so happy. Why are you so happy? This or that. And it's if you realize that the fact that we like the people that I love the most are all still alive, Nani, all of you. That is so not guaranteed. Man, that's amazing. I can't. Yeah, and I don't want that to be the only reason I'm having a good day because that's not. Eventually, it's not going to be the case. Whatever. But yeah, I'm so grateful that we're here.
Yeah, even before Devin, when I dated someone in 7th grade, their sister had passed away at a really young age due to a disease, and I was like, I can't ever imagine being in that situation until you're in that situation. Like I just looked at it and they just went on with their lives. And it's even with Hannah, I don't know how I would. It really just takes you back. Like every morning when I wake up, it's just something I do complain, it's this, it's that, but it's such a gift.
Yeah, I told you guys that I recently talked to one of our family members about when Nani passes away, starting to have that conversation because Nani is the oldest in the family at 91, so it's a lot more real, like especially when starting to lose her memory, signs of it, that sort of thing. And that was really the wake-up call. So I like having the discussion. I feel like it's almost good to have a discussion of let's not make this like an off-the-table topic because it's very real. It's a part of why we wake up, why we do things every single day because our time's limited. So I definitely like the idea of talking about it in a way where we're all aligned, where it's if that were ever happen, here let's talk about how would I want you to react, that sort of thing. And I'm definitely an advocate for the discussion.
It's definitely a hard topic, especially with dad's side of the family, with his dad he's been in the hospital in and out every month. Like it's been he's very sick and stuff like that. So it's very hard to even have that conversation, be like, maybe let's go visit him. But then you see him in such a horrible state. Like when I saw him, he was at like a facility and it was like dad went in and then I went in 30 seconds later and he was already sleeping, like snoring. He was so tired and stuff like that. It's hard to see it, but it's real life and it needs to be talked about and be like everyone knows in the back of their mind, but it's just hard to come to terms with it and talk about it.
Right.
And it's very hard. It's a very hard conversation.
It is what makes life, because life is bittersweet. So it is beautiful because if we lived forever, there would be no motivation for y'all. It's like there's no motivation to do anything. So it's necessary.
You got to be grateful for the time you have.
Yeah, and even with mom and dad, I had a talk with them and I'm like, if you don't want to do this for you, do it for your kids. Like I know you love us with everything and it's like I want you to take this step to be healthier. When I have my kids and my kids are like this and that, and when we get older, I want you to be there for those memories. I want you to be able to walk me down the aisle, Hannah down the aisle, Ari down the aisle. I want you to be there healthy and able to walk. I want you to be there in your best state.
Yeah, and to do that, yes, you love others, but to the extent, the power that you love others, you also have to love yourself very much. And because I feel like if you're not taking the action to do that, it's not that they don't love you, it's that maybe there's a reason that they're struggling with self-love and self-empathy. I've learned recently something called the hot-cold empathy gap. Learned that in the last podcast and during that, but it talks about how people can make decisions in two different ways, either hot or cold. Hot meaning when you're acting like just emotionally, like you're very upset. This is very interesting. Think about a person in your life, maybe Haley, someone you had this conversation with. When people act out on their emotions, that means they're in the hot state. When people act logically, that they're acting in the cold state. Okay, so that's the cold thinking and hot thinking. You guys get the two?
Yeah.
If you're thinking emotionally, if you're thinking cold logically, they say that what determines if you act more in that hot state or if you act more in that cold state is how much empathy you have for yourself. So that's why it's called the empathy gap. So if you have more love and empathy for yourself, how about now, Mama?
Okay, what is going on
How's that?
here? Let's
Is that
not-
good? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear
I
you.
just
Was
like
it
it-
always that loud? You were just bodying
I don't know
that?
what it was, but all of a sudden it was like.
I think she's just getting nervous. Remember when Mom used to say, I think they're just getting nervous because they don't want to dance in front of people. Like, she used to make us dance in the Yorktown Mall. Don't look at me like that
With
in
the
front of
people that own the shop.
Yes. And Mom
Oh.
stop. They just get
Yeah,
nervous.
with
There's a minute to warm up.
Those
Like,
do
no,
some
we
flip
literally
sides
trained
that
you,
night,
don't-
and they loved you because everyone was always fascinated by you guys.
Because, okay,
Yeah,
Kenny,
some
always.
Felipe Tube, whatever.
No, it's Pico de
It's
Gallo.
Pico de
Do you know what Pico de Gallo is?
No, but it needs to move back.
The salsa.
Yes, and I know.
It's
But
so
guess what?
pretty.
Pico de Gallo is.
Pico de Gallo.
He
Three
kept-
different guys.
Pico de Gallo kept tickling my head, so we guys have to move over. No,
We
literally,
started
it
this
was-
podcast off introducing Pico de Gallo.
Okay,
Easier.
what is going on? And now it's
Oh.
aggravating.
Is that still good? Is that good?
No, this is perfect.
It's like
This was
this.
literally touching my head, and I'm like, back up. Like,
Haley, the whole time it's
Haley, I said weird. No, you're fine.
I think Pico de Gallo is like the star guest of the pod.
so cute.
Wait, what?
So, Ken, did you learn any signs at all when you were reading the book?
K-E-N.
I didn't ask Val, I asked Ken. I know
Okay,
you
so
learned
Kenny-
signs. She showed me.
I
Can you
learned
not?
more.
Wait, restate the questions I burped.
Yeah, she burped as she burped.
So I was burped.
So I was asking if you've learned any signs. I know it's hard to understand from like the book.
Yeah, so the
They,
book
like-
does give a lot of pictures, and there'll be whole sections on different words and stuff like that. But it was hard for me to learn that. Like, I learned a lot about like, hey, signing is not just letters; it's facial expressions and
Yeah.
a lot of that. But I didn't actually learn the actual language because it was hard for me to look at the picture and kind of know like the movements through the picture.
It had like arrows, but even on the sign, I didn't know. I had no idea. I was a little bit confused too.
Yeah, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah, it wasn't just
I
me.
probably could have tried a little harder. I'm not gonna lie.
I still, yeah, I had to look it up and stuff like that.
Okay, let's jump right. Okay, I want to start on one thing because you just mentioned this off the pod, but so in the book it introduces that there's Black American Sign Language, like going back to that kind of dialects. Do y'all know Black American Sign Language? Have you ever heard of it, or was literally the book the first time you heard about it?
The book was the first time I heard about it, and
Do you have other Black students in your ASL class?
yes, yeah.
But they're learning it too at
They're-
your level, so it's not like they're
But
deaf.
They're learning American Sign Language. They're not, like,
But I'm saying like the Black students in your class, like they're not deaf. They're just learning it like y'all
Yeah,
are.
yeah. No one's deaf in our class.
So y'all have never met a Black deaf person.
No.
Okay. I'm surprised that when you guys in ASL class, do y'all learn a lot of, is it like just the language or is it a lot of like history of and that sort of thing?
It's partly in each of our units we'll have a background on something. In one of our units we were learning something and then we had a little bit of a section about the American Deaf Association and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And like famous like deaf people and like how when we had like a sports unit and like why we have like huddles in football is because there was a deaf person and like they were like signing stuff. Like something about that and like baseball signs and stuff like there were
Yeah, no, it's never just like words you learn. It's always like a section about words you learn, phrases, and then it's like that history and where it's coming from and why
Yeah.
we sign, where it's coming from. All that
But
stuff.
you said y'all have a good teacher because they have real life examples.
very good
The
teacher.
best teacher
Mhm.
ever.
Is it because she has real life examples?
I think she's just very like real life examples and
Passionate.
very passionate about what she does and she has kids that are hearing so we're not like her
For
kid,
kids.
kind of and like she like wants to teach us and we listen and the class is very respectful and majority you would say want to be there, want to learn. So
Yeah, and I think she makes a big difference because like in her experience, like she sees what her husband goes through. And I think like a lot of teachers, they just teach to teach, like they enjoy what they teach. They're just good at it, you know? Like she has a reason to be there every single day and to grow and expand their language.
and she's very down to earth. How like in school you have like tests and like it's A, B, or C. Like those are your options, stuff like that. She like I don't know, she like makes the test where it's like you're actually like real world and involving yourself and watching people sign and trying to understand the language and not just like stuff that doesn't mean anything. It's definitely like more of a real world class that actually helps when you get outside of school and she
Okay.
is definitely very passionate about it.
I love that because a passionate teacher is probably, I mean, my passionate teachers were in science, physics, and biology. And that is why I was so interested in the scientific community, why I ended up going into a scientific field and became a researcher and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah, it definitely changes how passionate your teacher is because one of our science teachers is not passionate at all and the class
Physics?
the class just wasn't I didn't get that experience of actually wanting to learn and understand physics and
yeah.
even though I don't want to go into that field, it was definitely if he had more passion for the
You see like
kids,
the impact you could have on the world with this.
really passionate about the kids that didn't understand as much, put in that time and help the kids. I maybe would have learned a little bit more than me just getting by in the class, which ASL proves that when you're passionate about something, you make other people want to learn about it and actually like the class.
Okay, just for sake of time, I want to jump into another thing that was brought up in the book. Let me know if you guys have heard of it.
Okay.
ICE. So for those
Yes.
that don't know, ICE is a concept that's in the book where, okay, the importance of ICE in deaf culture is twofold. It highlights that things we value. So what ICE is,
It's instead of earth, meaning EAR, earth with the ear, it's I. So it changes the culture.
yeah, so in the deaf world, there's a famous story of a utopian planet where everyone signs and everything is designed for easy visual access. So it's this utopian world that is centered around the where everyone signs, being accessible to the deaf community. Have y'all heard of ICE before?
I have not, no.
Yeah, before this book, no.
Okay. There's some couple discussion questions where what deaf friendly architecture, technology, or other design elements would you include? And how would you manage accessibility for hearing visitor? I'm curious if you guys have any reflections on things you think we could improve that would make things more accessible for the deaf community, that you see these in the real world and you're like, okay, this could be a little bit better. Do y'all ever see anything that comes to mind?
Just an example, not like making it better, but Starbucks it's a very big company. Obviously, everyone knows Starbucks, and on their board, they have a section cut out. So if like you're hard of hearing, they have a person that will pop up if like for like certain things.
So they can see you. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Wait, I'm a little.
It's like a whole screen when you pull up to a thing and it's usually just like a microphone.
Oh, in the drive-through.
Yeah, it's like a whole screen and the actual worker pops up in the section so they can see you and you can see them. So if you have someone who can actually sign and interpret at the Starbucks, they can either go to that and sign to the person and see what they're signing and stuff like that.
Couldn't they
So-
just pull up to the window?
yeah, but just like the regular experience of being able to like
like you're still at the menu screen and
Yeah,
you can see
treating-
the worker.
So that's like not the ignorance of like not understanding, but like that's treating the deaf people differently. And so with our teacher,
Right.
her husband refuses to pull up to the first window. He goes to the same Starbucks every single morning. They know his truck and they come on the thing. They know exactly what he gets. And he will not pull up to the first window and type it into a thing. They will be able to understand his order. So, and he's born deaf. He's very strict on like deaf
So how does he
culture.
tell them his order? He expects them to see his truck and just type it in.
Yeah, do you remember I don't know if
Maybe they had an interpreter or something where
yeah,
she
maybe
like
there's a worker on site, but he does not like that's his thing. I want to be treated like a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
I will pull up to the drive-through. I will be treated like any other person through your drive-through. So that's the thing. Yeah, they can, but that's their thing of where they're going like, don't treat me any differently. Like we just see this, oh, just pull up to it's not that big of a deal, but it's like to them it is.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting situation where
right.
you know someone is treating you wrong or someone's kind of doing you dirty, I guess for the lack of a better word, when it's like, yeah, and I'm wondering, does that ever happen to you guys where you know someone's not treating you correctly? How do you respond when it's, I know someone is, for example, in the deaf community, if someone's showing them pity or someone treating them differently and they know that, I'm wondering if you guys ever have moments where you feel like someone is mistreating you, and how do you have a general reaction when that happens? Because that's an interesting situation. I think everyone can. I'll speak for myself. If someone will make fun of me for whatever reason and they're being mean, the way I've heard it phrased recently where I feel bad for the person. I always have been. I've never been able to articulate like how I feel. I'm just like, I just feel sorry for you because I know that what you're doing right now is causing you to not have a genuinely happy life when it's not just me, when you're compensating for that. But the way I've heard of it is that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have. And when someone's acting up, man, you just must not have a lot of resources. God bless your heart. That's what some lady said at a conference. She was amazing. Oh my God. But that's how I've seen it recently, where it's, I know that I'm holding myself to a certain standard. I'm already winning by not stooping down to your level when someone's doing me wrong. Do you guys ever have that happen to you?
So specifically in ASL, like at my gym, I'll sign, and I said that the girl at my gym signs, but a lot of the girls that don't sign, like when we first started doing it, they'd be like, "Oh, you're weird. Like, why are you doing that?"
Really? And you knew it came from a place of ignorance, and they don't even know that.
Right, 'cause they're mad they're not understanding
They're
it.
like,
Yeah.
"Why are you signing by yourself? Stop doing that. That's weird." And I would sign in specifically. She was like, "You just look dumb. Stop doing that." And I'm like, "You're ignorant. Stop. Allow me."
So would you tell her? You're like, you're being ignorant?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna do what I want. I find ASL something that I want to do and be a part of that culture, and you're not stopping me just because you don't understand it and you feel discluded. Then teach yourself and
Take it upon yourself.
take it upon yourself to understand the community and get to know what we're really doing and where it comes from. Like, I just took it in a place where it's, you're missing out and I'm not, and I'm gonna keep signing and be a part of that culture where I want to be, where I feel where I want to be.
Yeah, I think it also comes from like a
Wow,
place
great
of,
example.
no, you're good. No, I think that bringing that up makes me think of like stuff like that. And I think it comes from a place of like insecurity of, oh, why can't I know? Or why am I not being like top dog in this conversation? Like it comes from like a place where you're like, you're not the top person because you don't like in that situation the feelings were like they didn't feel like they were the highest person in the room, so they felt like they weren't.
So it was like an ego thing.
And
Yeah.
Ego.
And in school, like high schoolers, obviously they're very judgmental. So when I'll be signing to her or just be in ASL class, people be like, "Oh, that's weird. Like you guys are just like throwing up gang signs." Like 50 times I've heard it, you're just throwing up gang signs. That's
Yeah.
disrespectful. Like it's a culture and this is how people communicate, and you're disrespecting it because you don't know it. Educate yourself.
And also to add to that, what you were saying originally, and everyone's heard this, it's a very common thing to say, is hurt people. So what I've learned over the years, it's not when people say things to you, most of the time it is because of their insecurities or what their experiences are. And it says more about them than about you. You've used that term recently, meet people where they are, and I've learned to really do that where when people are coming off ignorantly, rudely, condescending, mean, as opposed to taking it personally, just to stop and listen to what they have to say, because it's everything they're doing and saying, it's who they are and what they're struggling with.
What they've been
It has
through.
nothing to do with who you are.
What the words they say will say a lot about when they've been hurt, what is meaningful to them.
Right. So never change who you are. You just keep staying positive and you learn from it.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So going to this book, I want to talk about, okay, as a part of the storyline, Charlie, which is one of the students at the deaf school, has this ex-boyfriend named Slash, this rebellious dude, and it becomes a big part of the storyline of being rebellious and that sort of thing. And they bring up this anarchy. So there's even a whole section, like a whole mini chapter on Maximilian Robespierre, which is like the name of their band, and just talking about the history of these groups that have revolted and stood up. A lot of it is like the whole like Robin Hood thing, like stealing from the rich to give back to the poor. That's a specific phrase that he uses, like, this is what I'm doing, I'm stealing. And so even in the book, there's that section where, now you guys got me thinking if I should be spoiling things or not. I think I'm just going to, because that's how I've been doing it, and maybe I'll adjust later, just for the discussion.
do
If
a
you watch this, maybe it's like maybe I need to give a pre-warning.
I would definitely
Give a pre-warning, read the book before if you don't want to spoil it, because I think we need to talk through the whole part of the book.
Definitely. It's
But
a
it's
big
not
part.
even-
It's like a storyline of a big thing. It's just. But yeah,
but I'm even going to be going to like I want to go to the last sentence of the book and talk about it, because it is good
Yeah,
discussion.
it's definitely a big part. Read it. Yeah.
Yeah, read it.
I would read
Okay.
it before, yeah.
Yeah, so we just realized we have to read the book before, if you don't want to spoil it, read the book first for yours. Anyway, there's that whole, even in the whole point, he's like breaking into the store and then giving things. I want to hear your guys' reaction on this. Let me tell you how this hit me at first. I started to realize that a big part of this book has a lot to do with drinking, drugs, like hardcore drugs. And then it also starts to, because it's like that kind of culture, and it also gets into doing stealing from the poor to give back to the rich, stealing from the rich to give back to the poor. And I started to get rubbed the wrong way a little bit, because I understand that feeling of the top 0.1% of the world holds 99% of the wealth. And that angers me. That's very frustrating. I want to change that. But I feel like working at a large company has matured my perspective that to truly make change, there are better ways to get justice than stealing from one small business, for example. And I think even in the book, even the character kind of notices, like, I don't know how stealing from a hardware store is really doing that. But that even gets into the end, like how the ending folds out and stuff like that, where I'm still like, it seems like it's like to get justice, but I feel like I'm a little bit unfulfilled by that, because I feel like I've seen what it takes to take true change at a societal level. Because working for a large company, you're working on these complex issues, and you start to understand how complex these things are, but how you can start to actually change things at a global scale. And so that being said, I just want to mention that they are uncovering and give the history of kind of these revolting groups. And although that's powerful, I'm like, I don't know how much I appreciate that we're giving airtime to these sort of things, because I think they're a trap for a lot of people, where a lot of people get this anger and it's not actually a true way to create change.
I think that opens my eyes to see like the difference between a protest, like a violent protest, and like the peaceful protest, where they're both trying to create change, but one of them is doing it in a way that you're hurt, so you're gonna hurt other people, like hurting other businesses, compared to a peaceful protest where you're making a change because it's making it on the news and making it on social media, where it's spreading awareness, but you're not hurting others.
Yes.
You're just spreading awareness.
Yeah, just quick reflection on that. Governments know that the biggest way to have power is to get media coverage. That's actually why K-pop is so big right now. And this was from someone who is from Korea and was an expert in that space. But K-pop, you guys have heard of K-pop?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
like really big
yes.
right now.
I haven't.
K-pop, it's like a genre of music, Korean pop.
Yeah.
But Korean pop and these bands and stuff like that, it's actually the Korean government that started that and pushed that. And they did that strategically because the more you look up to that culture, they know the bigger place they have in society. And so with technology the way it is today, we know that wars aren't actually fought on the battlefield. As a military leader, you actually want to avoid war. It's one for everyone, but the real way is to get this social power. For example, when the whole Ukraine and Russia thing happened, you realize it's like, how much does the world care about your country, and how it's socially invested are the citizens in the culture and that sort of thing. So that's a big way to have power. And yeah, I can go more into that, but that just makes me think where I understand violent protests work at certain times. They were necessary at certain points in American history, for example.
Correct.
Yeah, but today I just question, do they have that same place? And I like looking at their intentions. Are you doing it because you're hurt, or is it more strategic to actually change your way? And I would have to be sold that a violent protest is the most strategic way to get your point across. And that's why I'm so skeptical that it's not just from someone that's hurt.
Yeah, no, going off of that, when reading that part of the book, like it did rub me the wrong way. It's like you have a whole culture, so many people, so many stories. Why choose something that when someone reads it, it puts such a negative connotation on it? It's just like, why put it in such like a violent, bad looking way? Like, why drugs? Why hookups? Why drinking?
Yeah.
Why is all of that rubbed in like the baseline of the story? Like,
It's so ingrained in like the
Right.
exciting, the quote unquote exciting parts of the story.
yeah, and there's just it's
That's what disappointed me about the book, I will say.
I was excited because Slash was like acknowledging her big scar from her thing, and it was just like, oh, like he appreciates the culture and all this stuff. And then it got into the robbing and stuff like that. It's just like there was such a positive that you could have brought upon it, like appreciating the scars and not seeing it as like disgusting and stuff like that. And then it got brought to
Yeah, it's
that.
like, why mingle it with that stuff? If I had to, and this was my prediction on it. I was predicting that the author wanted to make a quote unquote, I don't have a good word, like sexy book for teenagers or whatever. And so she's trying to relate it. I feel like she was almost doing it for other people, or for her, that is like the most exciting thing she's done in life is that drinking and drugs. And so that was there, but that was the part of the book, which is a big part of the book. The reason I think this book missed, yes, it gave me empathy, but it was lacking in some aspects. And I feel like when you have a fuller perspective of what really matters, having been the one who has partied, and not to the extent that they're talking about, but who has drank and stuff like that, I feel like having this fuller perspective, it's actually not what's important. And I would not highlight that because it just didn't, I don't know.
yeah. The book was really eye-opening. It taught me a lot of things about the culture, but it's like taking a different approach on it would have been like such a stronger hit. Like this is in our school curriculum to read, like, and having like stories about like really the drive, the fight, the passion people had, the real hard stories they went through, instead of taking a direction about stuff that hearing people go through, hearing people drink, hearing people do drugs. All that stuff's in every book.
Yeah, right. There was that thing in the book. It was like, oh, do you want to go to this party? And the teacher was like, as long as there's drinking, I'm there. So she interweaved through all characters this like love, just give me a drink. And that attitude to me is so dusty because I hear that today from people who I think they're stuck in life, like just living to just live in a bigger box and and it's always that, oh, just give me a drink and that sort of thing. And to me, that's what really holds people back from, I don't know. I just hated to see it. I felt it's trying to show that that's what's exciting in life. And to me, it really isn't. And so I want to caution that,
And going back to TikTok, I follow this deaf family and this deaf girl, and it's the stories that I hear, they make me watch their TikToks for 30 minutes, hour to like, they really pull me in. And it's like, I wish that they would have brought a different story, or she would have brought a different storyline.
Yeah.
So I felt that drive and not just like I'm reading any average book that hearing people. Like, it's just like,
I definitely want to say it did bring upon like a lot of positive things about the deaf community and
100%.
Learning experience and all that stuff.
Great takeaways.
But it definitely could have been like,
yeah, to me, that just didn't add value to the book.
it definitely could have added value having all those hard stories that they go through, all that stuff, and just like the powerful stories that make up deaf culture instead of just the stuff you read about every single day with everyone goes through.
Yeah, I always wonder if it is because that is just the author's experience. Now, I will say, I've never written from three people's perspective. That sounds like an awesome exercise to write a book from an old man, an old lady. I was just thinking about how powerful that is.
I definitely loved hearing about all the different experiences growing up, how Austin grew up with 4 generations.
Yeah.
And so it was like the difference of him growing up with 4 generations and then
Deaf people,
with the different like
families.
the different upbringings of different characters, which changed their whole perspective on the deaf community and how they grew up and how they are as a person today. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so you have to have. I always think about this, like my favorite books, the authors. I find out after reading it. The first episode we did, you were on the first episode with Nani, was Where the Crawdads Sing, and the book was so amazing. I'm like, how the heck did someone think of this and put this together? And you find out that the author lived in South Africa and had this the craziest life I've ever heard of. And what I've realized is that my favorite books are often not from the best writers, but from the people who have lived the fullest lives. And that's, to me, gives me confidence. If I do want to write a book one day, just keep focusing on just bettering myself every day, living an interesting life, and everything else, then I will have the content to write a better book. So it's like indirectly, you want to write a book, live an interesting life.
Right. Look at different perspectives from different places, all that stuff. Put yourself out there and
And so
understand.
I was thinking, like, did the author, maybe to them, that's the best, the highest height they've had is, doing drugs or something. That's what that leads me to think, because that's what they're
Right.
glorifying in the book.
Yeah, the only thing is like changing my perspective. Like I do look at it also from the hearing side. I'm like, oh, I want to learn more about like deaf culture, but I haven't learned about the author, but I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe it's from a perspective of what she's been through and it's just what the deaf people or deaf culture may find interesting. And, like maybe I take it from like okay, let me not see it as what's interesting to hearing people, of more of what's interesting to the deaf culture and what they find. Maybe that's like an interesting book from them to see how it is, but it's maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. What's
Yeah.
interesting to hearing people? It's what maybe that's interesting to them.
Thank you for that point of, that's a great reflection.
I try to look at all perspectives, but it's like, of course, I'm looking at through whatever's most interesting to me.
Yeah, that is a good point. Ultimately, how I still land on that, though, is even if it's interesting to other people, I have seen that as a dead end for everyone, in my opinion. Like, no matter what, because when I used to drink, and let's say I was at a party, if I was drinking, I'm leading this group. Like, I did that with my friends back home, and I was like, I'm leading, and this is the thing to do, and it could relate to anyone. But then when I left home, I saw that some of my friends are still doing that today. They never moved on. And that is something that is so hard for me to get over, that it's something hard to come to grips with, that I led my friends to a dead end, which is why that really drives me to not want to drink today, honestly, because even if it's a fun way, an easy way to connect with people, which that's really what I love doing, was connecting with others and driving meaning, I realized I was connecting over something that was leading people into the grave and is literally killing them. And that's the hard truth. And that is what made me think about this. So that's where my thoughts come from with that.
Yeah, that's a big takeaway. That goes
It rubbed me the
deeper.
wrong way because of something deep to me.
Yeah, and that again brings another huge perspective. I think I hear you like, oh yeah, I don't drink anymore, but I never really knew like the deep meaning to why. Like hearing that from you is like a really eye-opening wow moment. It's like, it's not he decided to stop drinking because it doesn't interest him. He decided to stop drinking for the better of everyone around him and himself too. So it's just very
It took me a long time to get to this point because in the moment, it seems so inconsequential. But I realize now, zooming out a little bit, that it's actually very consequential, and it's literally leading people to their, it's very consequential. And that's actually a recent reflection that I've had, by the way. I'm still, this is something I'm going through a lot on a day to day, because it was a lot, that was how I connected with people. And so changing that, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
God,
sharing that with him was like woo, that's a lot. Like
Thank you.
that
for
was
listening.
like something that, at least from my perspective, that's not coming to me at the age of 17. Like
Mhm.
that's a perspective that came from a long line of a lot of experience, a lot of memories, a lot of hardship stuff like that.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you for listening.
And I appreciate it because they're getting ready to go to college in a year. And although they're very disciplined and very smart,
I'm excited for y'all.
Yeah, I'm
It's
excited.
great. And I'm not saying that ultimately, I think with college, there may be a place for in your life where it's moderation, everything in moderation, that sort of thing. It could still have a place in your life where it's not necessarily bad, whatever. But that's just where I am right now. I just want to say
Right.
I'm not trying to deep, because I guess it did fit me in college, but what
The college experience.
Yeah, it fit me, although I do question if that wasn't what I did, what else would I have filled my time with? Whatever. I don't know. I'm happy everything that, I'm happy.
Yeah, everything
I had to
everywhere
go, I
you're
had to
at.
go through the learnings. I had to learn it that way.
Because if you didn't go through that experience, you could be, yeah, it's just, it all leads to great things in the end. So.
Yeah, I guess my biggest encouragement to y'all going to college is definitely have fun, try things, and just constantly reassess the place it has in your life and if it's getting you to where you want to be. Constantly reprioritize. I wish I did that a little bit more.
Please keep reminding me that for the next 5 years. And send that every 3 months, please. Thank you. On like a timely manner.
Okay, Hannah, you brought up how Slash noticed Charlie, the one of the main character's scar on her head.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, she got that scar from after the surgery, after her
Cochlear implant.
her cochlear implant
Which is
blew
a
up.
very big discussion in the deaf community.
Oh, yeah.
Can you guys just high level elevator pitch a little bit what that discussion is? And it talks about it in the book a little bit, but I'd like to hear just from you actually hearing it.
Yeah, so we actually had a project on this book, and I did my slide was about opinions from the deaf community about a cochlear implant. So my teacher, who is hearing and has been hearing her whole life, I would implant my kids now. I wouldn't back then because it wasn't as advanced, but now I would definitely implant them, and she would obviously have them signed, but she would implant them. But her husband, who's been deaf his whole life, is completely against it. So there's where perspectives clash because they're married. You can't, that's your kid that you need to figure out what you're doing.
They have to come to an agreement. Yes
Right.
or no?
And you have to
A or B.
implant early.
Oh,
It's more of a success rate
Yeah.
Higher. And her husband's, I would not implant my kid. I'm totally against it, 100% no. And I would want to. And so I'm like, how do you figure that out? And she's like, we didn't have to because their kids are hearing. But I'm like, I know. But I'm like, how do you come to terms with that? And how do you figure out what you're going to do with the kid? But cochlear implants it's a very big topic. And having your kid sign from birth, that's what he wants his kids to do. Like signing 24/7 from birth with a side of speech therapy is exactly what she said he would do.
Do you know the husband's reason for not wanting the cochlear implant? Because as a hearing person, I just hear that it's just an extra thing you can use in your toolkits.
I think
Not a disability in his eyes. So he doesn't see that's fit need. He doesn't see that as an extra tool. He just sees it as something.
you're trying to
Not necessary.
I think his thought process is you're trying to correct something that you don't need to correct because he's been deaf his whole life. So taking in Austin when his sister Skylar was born, she was not hearing at first, and then when she became hearing, the father was so excited because he has someone that can hear. So if the kid's born deaf, you're gonna keep it deaf because that's how I grew up in. I don't why are you trying to you don't need to fix it. There's nothing to fix. Keep that child deaf.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'd love to have a conversation with someone who, with that perspective, because
Right.
I agree that it does not make you lesser of a person. And we can even say, it's not even a disability. Maybe that's even a bad word because it has a connotation of being lesser.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, but just recognizing the environment we in, if we know that there are people on earth that don't know sign language, if doing that would allow you to communicate more effectively with a new group of people, I only see that benefit. Unless you're trying to go for the perspective that everyone should learn sign language and we should do that instead of implanting my kid. But realistically, where we are, I don't know. I just think that if you know that not everyone speaks signs, so you can communicate with more people. If you have, that's the pro that I see.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think he sees that pro. I just think the way he thinks outweighs that one little thing, in his mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more the mindset. Stop. You're not fixing anything with that cochlear implant.
Because there's nothing wrong.
He's just very against it.
Let me ask you all this. Although we at the moment do not have to make the decision of having cochlear implants, looking at it as it's technology in your brain to give you a new ability, looking at it from that definition and perspective, there is the increasing of relevance topic of Elon Musk's Neuralink company, which has live demos today. What their whole mission is creating computer chips that you put into your head to give you some type of new ability. And that is the true definition of artificial intelligence, because it is now your brain now using something artificial for that intelligence. I was going to ask you guys, and has many different use cases, and those are continue to build out. I do think I would predict this would be a increasing relevance topic, as the company's already done it, is doing demos, and they will only increase. Giving that assumption, when there comes a time that we will have the option to potentially plant a chip in your head, let's say to help you with memory, help you with recalling information, or any other super thing, would you do it? Would you implant a device that could give you a superhuman ability, artificial intelligence?
So to take it back a few steps, as Charlie had her implant, it was an older implant because it like had first come out, whatever. It was like an older implant, not a new version. And she ended up in the hospital from it and it hurting her. So that makes me think of a new invention, which it's new and cool and you want to be involved in that, but you don't know the like what it like holds in the future and what it can do.
If it will age, long-term impact.
Right. So until I know that for sure, I would 100% not do it,
Nice.
because it's new and fun, but it's not fun when you end up in the hospital or when it gets recalled or something like that.
Or it gets hacked or something.
It got recalled. They didn't even tell her. They didn't even tell her until the thing happened. Remember, they were like, she went,
Yeah.
and it was like, you mean the thing in my head? You're not gonna tell me?
Recalled. Yeah.
Like how?
Yeah, so I definitely would not do that. That just would sit in the back of my mind. What if it gets malfunctions or something like that? I definitely wouldn't do it because you don't know the effects of it because it's new.
Me neither, definitely not.
You would not do it.
I would not do it. I would not mess. God gave me this brain, and it's the one I'm gonna go to my grave with. That's it.
I think people have survived with obviously Alzheimer's, which hurts your memory and stuff like that. And even if it would help your memory, I think it's people have survived without it, and it's the way life happens. And as you get older, it happens. And I just don't think I would mess with putting a chip in my head. So, but
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, what's interesting is I see, I'm thinking about your perspective, Mom, where it's like God gave me, this is the way it is, and that made me think that even if I put a chip in my head and I knew it was safe, let's just assume 100% safe, very tested, not that whatever, not that high risk, and let's say it gave you perfect memory, you can go to any memory you want, like this. I was thinking, would that even be a good thing? Because I think sometimes there's power in. I've seen some of my friends, people who just every time I go to them, they're always talking about, oh man, we were younger, we did this, and I feel like they're not in the moment.
Right.
And sometimes I wonder if I don't believe I have the best memory, or I'm not thinking that much about the past. I'm always so future focused. I'm almost wondering if maybe that lack of being able to recall things like that has me more in the moment today. And if I was able to pull any memory, maybe I'd be stuck in the house just pulling out memories all day and not being actionable. So
Right.
maybe it wouldn't even make a better human experience. And I think about that human experience a lot, because with that whole discussion of artificial intelligence, is it going to take over the world? It's getting so powerful. I'm looking at the only thing I really care about, is it improving the human experience? Is it improving lives? And that's the only thing I'm really the only thing I'm really trying to measure that holds weight for me. Yeah, so all that to be said, my point is, one, I would be skeptical that even if it gave me powers, if that would make me a more happy person, because there is something beautiful in simplicity, finding the joy in the small things. Now, if I was sold on that though, I absolutely would do it, as long as it was relatively safe. I feel like everyone has that different threshold in their head of like, how reliable does it have to be? I would like to think though that I'm more on the riskier or more newer side to wanting to do that. But this book, it does give an interesting perspective, and you do too, that it is just an interesting perspective of something going wrong, which
Right.
Yeah, personally, I'm like that too. I'm completely against it, no matter how many years it's been, how many new updates.
completely against it. You would never do it?
Never completely.
All
I
right,
just
we'll see. I will
Right,
see,
we'll
because
look
I think
back
there's
on this.
I think there's a time that I think right now it's hard to even imagine what it can do.
Right.
I don't even know what it is, but I'm keeping my mind open. But I hear you though. I mean, there's something
Yeah.
powerful to being.
I just, yeah, like I'm born human. I'm born how I'm supposed to be, like how mom is. I don't need anything being planted in me to be better. I'm who I am. I don't need to be better. I'm proud of who I am. And no matter if my memory's the worst or the best, or I'm the smartest or the worst, I am who I am no matter what. And I don't want to change that.
I think I want to bring back your point of on the past, like how you would bring back memories and stuff like that. I think it's like dwelling on the past and like you'll have those memories and the ones that you want to stick, they will stick. And the most important ones, they'll be there and you'll remember them.
Yeah.
So
That's beautiful. And I think there is something about really embracing the way life is. But I am always, if I see an opportunity to improve it, I'm willing to throw out my old standards and do something new personally. Yes, because but you know what? This also makes me think about, sorry, were you going to say something?
no, you're good.
This actually to me relates back to that question that I asked earlier, and I was like, that was a lot. When it comes to the designer babies, it's like the same principle lying under it of if we could genetically modify a baby to have superpowers, would we do that? Who gets to decide? Because then you very quickly could easily start to weave out diversity, for example, the hearing community and the ethics around this. I do not think I'm smart enough or informed enough even to begin to have a answer that I feel good about. But I'm wondering if you guys have any knee-jerk gut reactions or preliminary thoughts to if you think we could, for example, eradicate a certain disability. Let's not use hearing for this example, but maybe one more series, or maybe deformities. If we could have a way to ensure that there's no deformities, for example, do you think we should do that?
Personally, I think our imperfections make us who we are and make us live the lives that God wants us to, or whoever wants us to. And we're put on this earth with certain things like deformities, disabilities, and stuff like that. And that's how we're going to live our lives, and that's how we're supposed to. So genetically modeling to be the perfect thing, like robots and stuff like that, I just think it takes away the meaning of life, like fighting and like having struggles and obstacles and having differences. Because if I'm all,
Because the meaning of life is the obstacles.
and if we're all the same, what's the fun in that? If we're all like genetically modified to be perfect and act in a certain way, there's no real meaning and fun in that. You know what I'm saying? Like we're all different, and that's what makes life. If you're right, that's like
Mic
yeah,
drop.
that's
You
a
can throw my mic if you want to, because that was
no, that's the. But yeah, no, literally, you make genetic chips, every person the same. What's different about life? You're saying if you have everlasting, all that stuff like that. You were talking earlier about if you have life forever, then there's no motivation, there's no move. If everyone's the same, what makes me different from you? Like, where does life go from there? It's just a flat line of everything being basic and the same.
It's so interesting because it's like it's the struggle that gives life meaning. That's part of the reason the paper chase. It's about the chase, the wanting more, the wanting wealth and whatever it is, wealth and health and all that sort of thing. And I recently changed my Instagram name to Kenny Chaser because of the paper chaser.
that.
But it's all about the chase. That's what for me that is the meaning of life. And I think that's really interesting. Thank you for bringing that up because you're changing my mind again live. Where it's if things were all good, that meaning, that soul, that creativity goes away, which then also gives me comfort in death, sad things. Their life, happiness, all of that has this fabric of the bitterness in life. And so it's almost like you can almost feel good when those bitterness moments happen, like that sort of thing, because that's what is so required to make things beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. No.
And I think it's such a slippery slope because even before the genetically changing babies, just everything, people get nose jobs and then they fix this and then Botox and everyone starts looking like the same stretched face, non-expressional person. And I think it's so sad when I see that in society, and I know social media promotes everyone wants to look a certain way. And to me, I just think that's so sad because everyone is so beautifully unique, and I just wish that maybe I grew up a different way because we didn't have social media and we didn't have phones that everyone was looking at these perfect people, which they're not, they don't look that way and their lives really aren't that way. I've always been happy with who I am and very grateful for everything. And instead of being envious of people, being grateful for what God has given to me and being happy for you if you have something I don't, and maybe learning from that or whatever the case may be. It's just such a slippery slope, and I don't believe in any of that. I just grow old. Every wrinkle on your face tells a story. I mean, no one's supposed to look like your face looks like you're 40 when you're really 80 and have wrinkles on your, it's just gross. Like, just be who you are and embrace getting old and making the
Wow.
perfect child. It's just, to me, it's not authentic. What are you striving for?
I understand what you're saying, Mom, because a lot of people who do that are not authentic. I do want to say that I don't think it's like a guarantee. If someone does this, that means they're not authentic or they're material. I do want to say I think it's very common among the majority of people who do that. A lot of times it is for the wrong reason, but I do believe that just because someone has plastic surgery or looks super fake and all that things, like you said, maybe everyone we've ever seen is always material and their head's in the wrong place. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. I do think you could do that and you can be a loving, authentic, genuine person. Ari shared on the last podcast when she came here that she got lip filler for her first time and it made her feel so good. At the top lip, she's like, now when I smile, my lip flips outwards. I never had an upper lip. And that makes her feel good. And for me, because I think of it like video games, if I could choose my own Fortnite character, let me feel good in who I want to be. And so I encourage people, if it makes them feel good, to change everything they can, as long as they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think that's no. Go ahead.
I think it's very hard in this day and age. I know it's like funny to say, but with all of our social media and seeing all the editing apps and all that stuff, and like all the most famous people get surgery to look a certain way that they want to look and stuff like that. So it's very hard to capitalize on your imperfections when all is perfection at the top. So I think it's definitely hard, but getting a couple lip fillers and stuff like that to make yourself happy for the right reasons.
Okay.
A couple things is, yeah.
And that's a good point with the social media, because a lot of the filters and stuff is also another slippery slope for, for the wrong reasons, and it's causing people to be more depressed and just showing the good
I
side.
think a lot of times it does more harm than good. You know,
right. It is being used as more harmful. It's being used more harmfully than good.
Right.
On TikTok, I just saw that I was making a video and you can change like your teeth color and you're like.
Yeah, when you're making a video, there's like filters you can they make it easy to just tap. You
Yeah.
And it doesn't even show you have a filter on.
Yeah.
It does it
It
automatically.
doesn't show you have the filter on. Like there's a new thing and it doesn't even show you have the filter on. And you can make like everything bigger. Like it was crazy.
Your
Like
teeth red, your nose.
It's
Yeah, I saw that. It made
so
notable mentions and stuff.
unrealistic. You're showing our generations that
you need to change to fit in.
right, no acne, perfect body, skinny, all of that is our expectations, our reality. It's not. It's unrealistic. And
That's why Lizzo's on top, I swear.
I love Lizzo.
I swear by
Lizzo's so
Lizzo.
real.
What about Lizzo?
Lizzo's real.
She's
Oh,
real.
she's
She's very real in anything, body positivity, everything. She lives a real life and she shows everything about her life.
I think that's gonna age well. Because as a video editor, I'm starting to see a lot of these new AI things that do everything for you and can make your own scenes. And I think the video space is gonna change a lot with AI coming into the video space. And I think I predict there's going to be a new appreciation and culture for that rawness, authenticity, that hashtag no filter that was big in like 2007. I predict there's going to be a new category. It's almost going to be like its own category of
Definitely.
arts.
I appreciate like the no filter and stuff like that, but I do appreciate AI bots because they did help me with school.
Oh, you use ChatGPT for school?
Yes.
Oh,
I
Do you mind sharing how? You too?
so I
No way.
so
Oh yeah,
in physics,
Oh, yeah.
big time.
I struggled a lot in physics, just like understanding concepts and stuff like that. And when I didn't have a very good connection with my teacher, so when I would ask a question, it would be more of like a condescending answer. Okay, figure it out.
The teachers would?
Yeah, it just wasn't a very
Condescending, yeah.
yeah. And so I think that like when I would look up chat, like I would text my AI and ask him a question, and it would be a response that helped me out more than a real in-person teacher, which is sad, but I definitely do appreciate the AI because it definitely did carry me through my physics class. Without that chat, like AI, I probably wouldn't have gotten as of a good grade because the teacher I didn't have that connection where I would get help.
Wait, I don't even know about this. This isn't
So
a tool in school that NEPA provides?
It's just on the
no,
internet,
yeah,
available
no.
to everyone. So
Not on
why this
Snapchat.
AI topic is more relevant today is because the first public website came live where now anyone in the public can use this AI bot, which basically takes everything on the internet
And yeah,
and it will
give you a great answer.
give you answers. So you can talk to it like a person. It basically takes all the knowledge on the internet and acts as a person.
Yeah.
And it does that by
right here.
predicting. It's able to predict. You have it on your phone.
Yeah. Chat AI and Snapchat.
And Snapchat. 'cause they
It's
have
like-
their own.
Yeah.
You send it hi, and as
But
soon
I
as
would-
you send it, it pops up and it's, hey, how are you doing? But it's not a real person, it's literally a robot.
But it can give you. People are using it like.
I would, yeah.
Yeah. So for example, I'm gonna call myself out here. Hashtag True Biz. For Mother's Day, I was like, write me a Mother's Day text. But listen, no, but listen.
But
listen. No,
Wait
listen,
a minute.
listen. No, but listen. It wrote me this text, and it was super like clunk. It was like,
Robotic.
yeah. So I used that skeleton outline and then changed it to my own kind of thing.
Not authentic.
This is the
This is
worst
what
thing.
Mom's talking
This is the
about.
worst. That was like my deepest, darkest secret.
What the?
way,
My deepest, darkest secret. But listen, but the thing is, I just used because it would give you a structure like. I love you, and I would change it to like things that were more meaningful to me.
Okay.
So people use it as a structure, but then you have to personalize it.
I'm calling. Okay, I'm gonna call myself out too. I have, no, not for you.
I was like all mom's Mother's Day
What?
text or
Like,
just
yeah.
ChatGPT.
I have a gymnastics banquet.
Yours weren't right. You always wrote me.
Mom, I'm sorry.
No, I have a gymnastics banquet and I had to write a speech for the seniors and I looked up like senior speeches and like what to bring up in them and stuff like that because last year when I watched them, I don't really remember. So it's just like having Safari, but it's like texting. I don't know. I appreciate AI.
Yeah, it's kind of,
bots.
it's really funny. Like when it popped up, I was like, hello? Like, who are you?
I always thank it. Every time I'm like, thank you. I try, you know, you
I
to be,
know.
yeah,
I
have good
asked-
manners.
I
Thank
want
you.
to read my Mother's Day text.
Yeah, Mom, are you upset? Are you upset?
She's
that I
like,
No, but all kidding aside, True Biz, your words are so beautiful and heartfelt. You never need assistance. Are you
Thank you. Well, but it is very helpful
Oh,
to
he
because
did.
sometimes you sit there at the phone and there's so much thought. It's like, where do I even start?
just
It's useful. It's useful.
from the heart.
yeah?
I have found it even for work and stuff.
Where do you
Yeah.
I'm
start?
really trying to
From the
justify
heart?
this. It helps you. It gives you a structure of different places you can go in your gratitude and message. That's what I find useful for is a structure. It does. It has helped.
You don't need
But
that.
Getting
You don't need that. You're amazing.
But getting back on
Okay,
the topic.
well.
You're not having that. I used to say that.
I'm waiting for a
She's
text
offended.
before I leave here. There better be a
like a
I
real
want a
one.
new Mother's Day. And you guys can laugh all you want because neither one of you sent me a text for Mother's
Mom,
Day.
I see you in
Alice-
Caribbean.
That's okay. I
Now-
still want a text or a card.
Okay, now you're
Okay,
getting
now
too
the
much.
Here comes the house.
Yeah, you're all
so you're not
Help,
taking
help,
the.
help.
All right.
Okay, to get back on topic. No, but even the pettiness that is going on right
I
now.
owe you a new text. That was not acceptable.
Yeah, I'm deleting
That
them.
was,
I'm gonna compare
But you don't like. I'm just
Get
gonna
up.
stop. Yeah, I'm gonna stop while I'm behind.
You should feel terrible. Anyways,
No, I don't feel bad.
I
I
know
know
it
it's
is-
cute that you went out of your way to do that, but anything you say is perfect to me.
But you have to
so-
understand,
Okay,
I
but-
changed half the words to like
So
whatever.
it should have been better.
You were 50% authentic? I don't know.
I was 100% authentic in
He's not gonna crawl behind
Yeah.
the guy.
Pico de
I know, I did
Pico de
it.
gallo,
It was
the plan.
great. I was telling everyone, I'm like, this was a great use of ChatGPT. Just because it was so
Mom,
it was
you're the
helpful.
only one who didn't know. Fake right now. Like
I'm being real. I'm being completely
This is what Mom was
real.
talking about.
This
You're
is like
getting
fake
those
news.
jobs now.
Right?
Testing AI.
Did you get a butt lift? A little.
Oh, yeah, now we're going on a
I'm
tangent.
getting drowned right now for doing this. That was oh my
I
god. Y'all
wanna
are
get back.
questioning my integrity.
No.
Oh no,
never.
genuinely chat GPT or whatever AI stuff like that. It's actually really helpful. Okay, let's not bring that up right now. Stop.
What? Tell us. You gotta share.
What? Mom. They're so
Okay, let's.
confusing.
Okay, ask a different. Ask.
No,
okay,
you have to clue us in on that little
Okay.
laugh.
No,
we
Hannah was
almost
just
done 'cause
talking
I'm
about.
really hungry.
I'm trying to get the doctor. So actually, back to True Biz. No, Hannah just said Jad instead of Chat.
I thought so. I was like, did I hear that right?
No,
No.
it's
Ew.
That was mom. Nothing. Okay. Anyways, no. Please keep going with True
I'm
Biz.
sorry I messed up my words. I didn't know I could make a
I'm
mistake.
thinking of taking one last left turn before we reflect
Oh
on the
my-
ending. Before we go to the ending.
Okay,
Like
fair.
one more
Okay,
kind
so
of
two
new
more.
topic.
I went to top.
2 more topics.
Two more
So don't
topics.
lie.
Are
Two
you
more
okay with that, or
topics
you
to
want to
the-
go to the end? It's totally okay. And this
Well,
one can
let's
go
hear
nowhere.
it. We can do it. If we'll,
Okay.
go ahead and ask and we'll either
And this
answer.
can go nowhere, so I'm happy for this to be a dead end.
Oh. You're happy for this to be a dead end?
Why would you
In
start?
terms of the conversation,
Why
like,
would you start with that?
I'm saying, like, if this goes nowhere, if this doesn't resonate with
Yeah,
y'all, we can just skip it. But
yeah,
I'll
no,
bring up
that-
the-
This microphone.
Every
May I sit like this, Kenny? Or is this improper?
Come on.
time you move, I wait.
Okay. Can this be like the thing where it's
It's a
like
thumbnail.
Let's do a thumbnail. Let's do a thumbnail.
I can't. Okay, wait.
It's too cringy.
Okay, wait, do it again.
Ready?
Wait,
1, 2, 3.
Okay, let's go.
I'm not. That's a thumbnail.
Please don't actually.
Can we all
That's
just like look at
embarrassing.
each other like we're like looking at you for the thumbnail?
I feel like we need to wrap up soon. I feel like we're getting to about wrap up time.
I'm getting a little hungry.
Okay, a little
Now with the
hungry.
taco truck.
Y'all are going to the taco truck. How about we go to the ending? We'll go to the ending.
No, let's hear the one. and
No,
this
yeah,
one.
no, let's hear
What
it.
do
Because
you
it
wanna
carries
hear?
us into like our family.
Okay. Well, this last kind of left turn was in the book where they're talking. You guys remember who Elliot is in the book?
Yes.
Slightly.
Give me a
Elliot's-
refresher.
Elliot's the person who was Austin's roommate who like went
Okay.
through
Oh,
a
yes.
tough life.
Yes.
And they talk about how he went through that church experience where they poured candle wax
That
down
was-
his ear.
Horrible to read. I brought it up to my ASL teacher. It was literally horrible. It was horrible to read.
Yeah, first let me say that's probably really happened in real life. You hear
Yeah.
about all of these before we like had the current understanding we do of the medicine field. They were doing all types of things, sacrificing people. Just throughout human history, there's been human sacrifices.
Human
and stuff like
saliva.
that. You can the most extreme gruesome things. So first off, if I ever want to be grateful, I just think about thank God I wasn't born literally any younger than I was. Like
Right.
I'm
No,
always just so
literally.
grateful I wasn't born 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, all for different
Mom.
reasons.
50 years apart.
All for different reasons. Like for me, like I feel like I was introduced to like video games were better off, and so I'm like, thank God for that.
Man was awesome when I was.
Hey, that's
Look
true.
at
You still
the
got that.
Tetris. Tetris was a good
Oh,
one. Come
yeah.
on
That
now.
was a good one.
Okay, sorry.
Scrabble.
Um,
was like-
Yeah.
Okay,
and,
Tetris was
but I was more just grateful, like I didn't have to live in like when there were human sacrifices and stuff like that
Right.
in my culture. But I go back to when they talk about Elliot's traumatic experience because he saw, I think it was someone in his family died. I think it was like his brother or sister on a more serious topic. And they got into a car crash and he saw his dad. And the last thing he saw his dad was like, do you see the angels? That's how the author describes this very serious point in the book. And that was the last word. And then you find out like they're at his funeral, the next scene.
Yeah.
And I bring this up because this was an interesting point to me because one of the most interesting topics in science that I've heard recently, and Mom, I actually sent you, I don't know if you ever got a chance to rewatch them, but was a doctor who works in hospice and specializes in near-death experiences or people who pass away. So he has seen hundreds of times people pass away, and it's our best look at that in-between moment between life and death and that sort of thing. And they tried to find commonalities, and we can talk later on about what they found and that sort of thing that interests you, or I can send the video. But it was just interesting because the last thing in this book was, oh, do you see the angels and that sort of thing? And I'm just wondering where you guys stand today. And I'm just asking out of pure curiosity because I don't know, at least where Hannah and Haley you stand, and Mom, happy to hear your opinion too, on what your thoughts are about angels, for example. What happens when you die, and or do you believe in angels? What is that? How do you think about that type of spirituality, soul leaving the body? Do you have a very clear answer in your head? Is there a big question mark? Does that bring curiosity into you?
For me personally, with angels, just in death in general, I don't know if it's more scary than spiders, but it's a pretty
Scary.
It's terrifying to me. In church every week, that's one thing I always think about, change and death. Like death scares me.
Scares you.
Terrifying for me. Thinking about like the world ending and stuff like that, and just like death, being in a coffin, like all that stuff, trapped and stuff like that, and there's nothing after this, or if there is something after
We
this.
just don't know, right? Like,
And the
Okay,
uncertainty,
no.
like you're supposed to have faith and know that God is in our, like we have an afterlife and stuff like that. But for me, I struggle with that and knowing that there's actually something there, and it terrifies me.
and what is terrifying about it? Is it the fact that you don't know? Is it the fact that if there's a possibility that you end and that's it and that was all you ever, I mean, what?
It's the uncertainty of not just like the world, everything just going blank one day. Like when I had my seizure, like everything just went blank and I don't remember anything from it. So it's like it can just go like that and it's just like blank, because nothing happened from it. I don't remember any of it. So it's something that literally just goes away and you have no control over it. And I struggle with that because it's terrifying not knowing anything, having no control over it. It's terrifying for me. It literally makes me so anxious. I just like death is literally top like scariest thing that just think about, which I don't think about a lot because it's literally terrifying.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, going off of that, I agree with that a lot. I think I do struggle with my faith at points, and when I do get to points where I am struggling, that's where like when I'm talking to mom, she talked to this, talked to that, and it's like where I struggle with that. I go on and off a lot. So it is like a big question mark, but at the same time, it's like if I do believe in God, if I do go to church, if I do all that stuff, like it's not hurting me. Like it's only bringing me comfort, like all the stuff like that. So it's not something that's gonna hurt me or do anything like that. And she shared that with me. It opens my eyes to like church isn't a negative thing, like in certain whatever, like stuff like that. But generally going off like Hannah, or do you have something to say?
No,
Okay.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I want to make sure you got your thought out. But like hearing Hannah, like death absolutely terrifies me. Nothing more in the world terrifies me more than death. Like even with like medicine and stuff, I'm the biggest absolutely no medicine if I don't have to take it.
Me
Because
too.
I don't want to put anything in my body that I don't know. Like I have very strong reactions to medicine, and even when I was in the hospital, like taking those medications was, I almost feel didn't help me or affect me because my body was on such like a fight or flight, don't die. Like medicine scares me more than death probably because it's just such an uncertain thing. Like why can a little capsule make my body shake for 6 hours, an uncontrollable feeling of dizziness and all that? And I'm just so against medicine in those certain cases, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, just I want to reflect on that. If you look at your bracelet, it says, I am enough. And what that means to me is that you are born with everything you are. You are born as enough. And so that at least gives me comfort that just being born, can already start to feel contentness with if I were to pass away whenever, that I will feel good about it because I was already born enough and that sort of thing. And go ahead.
I just wish, like, going back what you said, like, when we go to church and stuff like that, it can't hurt. It's sad to say, but, like, when I go to church, it just makes me more anxious and makes my head, like, just
Makes you think.
right, like, I'm supposed to find that as my safe place, and it just makes me, like, more scared because it makes me, like, I have that time to reflect,
Yeah.
and everyone there thinks that there's an afterlife, and it's just me, like, doubting it, and it just scares me.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like for me, I understand why you would do that because you're having that reflection,
Right.
which that's an important reflection because it really kicks you into what actions do I need to take to make sure like doing the right thing to. So one thing that I learned in jujitsu, like the principle behind the sport, because jujitsu teaches you how to beat people when you're fighting that are bigger than you.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to stay calm at all times. So if I was fighting someone who's 6'4", the way you beat them is you let them get all their anger out and you just move with them and you stay relaxed. And then once they're tired, then you cook them first before then you do that. And the way that relates is you want to stay calm and go through the waves of life. And even though I don't necessarily know exactly what for me personally, I'm not confident that I know what the afterlife looks like. I think I have no idea, but there's nothing I can do that will change that. So I feel like I would rather have comfort and grace in moving in this uncertainty, because maybe that is what makes life fun and beautiful anyway. Just do the things that I know are right, be a good person, do the right thing, use my time correctly, that sort of thing. And that's all I can really control. And so there's a muscle that I have to increase of being okay with uncertainty and being uncomfortable in uncertainty. That's something that you have to build over time, and something that I think that the more you increase that uncertainty muscle, being okay with it, it just pays off so much, because life's a lot more relaxed and you're more at peace.
Okay, and as far as, so thank you for sharing that, all of you. It's very interesting, because all of us were raised Catholic and went through all of our sacraments.
Yeah, so we're talking to the whole.
So I appreciate that each of you have a different perspective as far as, just to address Hannah and Haley with that uncertainty, or especially you were saying you get almost anxious because you are self-reflecting. I think tying into what you just said, it's almost not a growing, but the more you self-reflect, don't be afraid of it. That's just you getting to know yourself, and allow yourself to give yourself the patience to reflect and to question. Nothing bad's going to come of that. Don't be afraid of what might be, because Penny said there's no way to change that. Try to find the beauty and calmness in it.
Right, because like doing things frantically aren't going to get you any further. That's why it's like frantically praying versus just praying. There's really no difference in the
Right.
impact.
Right, there's nothing that's gonna change whatever is supposed to happen.
I know exactly.
Is there any difference in actual impact? No, you're just stressing yourself out more, living shorter.
And just think about connecting what he was saying to answer on my perspective. I know firsthand, I 100% believe in angels. I know that one of the gifts I've been given in life is my faith. So I've never questioned it. I love our faith. And I know specifically Poppy, that he had his guardian angel appear to him before he died, and he actually saw his guardian angel. There was communication between him and his guardian angel. I know your dad, who struggles with his faith very much so, has had communication with Padre Pio when your sister's eyes, when she was having trouble and couldn't see and didn't have lenses in her eyes. As much as he struggles with his faith, he has been part of a miracle and guardian angels and the different sense you've had. I don't know if you remember when you were in church, when you were little, at one time, you had shared with me that you had this very strong sense of roses that kind of
Reminded me of Blessed Mother.
of Blessed
Kiss my
Mother.
roses.
So you remember, but there was
Just wanna
nothing else around
friend smell
you, or no
roses.
one else around you. But it was a feeling, it's just like Dad, almost like where you couldn't move. It
I
was a
just wanna
feeling of
point out-
stillness.
2 of the times that there was Poppy and then Dad, those were in times of fear, which I want to point out, most of the times that I resort to God and stuff like that is because I'm fearful of death or the uncertainty. So
Commonality, yeah.
God
Yeah.
is like that fill-in of uncertainty that I'm scared of. So it's more of, I'm like resorting to, that's like my fix on fear.
Just to correct what you're saying, neither one of those times were fearful. Dad was changing Ari's diaper and she saw Padre Pio. Dad wasn't
Ari.
fearful.
No, but wasn't it at a time though where Ari's vision was in question?
And
And
Poppy
Poppy
was dying.
Dad wasn't
That-
fearful,
pretty
and
much.
Poppy wasn't dying. This was beforehand.
Let me reframe the
I'm saying-
conversation, because I don't want to get in the trap of, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I want to give validity to what Hannah's saying. She's trying to find commonalities between
that
times
is
find
very
people find God. And even outside of those 2 examples, we can find commonalities when people feel more religious and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we can pick and choose those.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I want to ask Mom, is there any of your specific, like, I know you hear like this miracle from other people, but like in your experience, like I want your actual, not you, but like your actual
Right.
experience with it other than hearing other people's.
I do want to say one more. Auntie D, who is your god, she saw a guardian angel, and this was in the time of panic when Jacob had
She
gotten
lost her
lost in
kid.
Woodfield Mall, and the guardian angel literally, she described him to the T. He pointed in the direction she found him. It was a big, beautiful situation. She was not afraid of him. No one else could see him. 100% believe in it, but you're asking if I've specifically experienced one. I have 4 miracles, the 4 of you.
Oh. No, that's valid. That's how she
Yes.
sees us as miracles.
Well,
We
you
see us
are.
as science. She sees us as miracles.
I'll say this.
The 4 of you are miracles. So.
As someone who does not align their view of spirituality with what is written in the Bible today, because I want to say that there's been a lot of evolvement in my view of spirituality. I just want to say, Mom and I did have a conversation recently where we were actually able to have alignment on what spirituality meant to me. And I realized that spirituality actually has a very similar definition to her. It's just phrased or thought of in these concepts of the Catholic faith, which I thought was very interesting. That I actually, for the first time, found commonalities in what I think a higher being is. And it's just conceptualized through this one lens of the Catholic faith, where for me, my view has changed so much over the years and developed, I believe, and I was able to draw those commonalities, even though I think they're two totally different. My views they're not even theist. I consider myself an anti-theist.
Can you explain what anti-theist is?
Yeah, so the best way I can describe it is people who are religious, like the religions, and atheists are all considered theists because they all agree on the assumption that your connection to a higher being depends on your beliefs on that higher being.
Yeah, I've heard of an atheist. I never.
And this is different.
Yeah.
An anti-theist throws that presupposition out the window and says, I don't even believe that my beliefs about a higher power connects me to that higher power. Rather, I think that higher power is not a single being. There is a property of a non-being of the spirit. There is a no thingness to this higher power. It is not a single thing. The best way I can describe it is someone who is like, it's similar to the concept that if I try to look at myself of who I am, when I look at who I am, I'm looking at the old version of me because I am always evolving. I can never see myself to who I am in the moment because the observing self is never the observing self. The observing self is always observing the past self. And that is a property of a no-thingness. And that no-thingness, I believe, is a trait of a higher power. The best way I can describe it is there is something in all of us that is this, let's just say, energy. It's almost as if before we were born, we were all a big glass painting. And if you took a hammer to that glass painting, the shards that would come from that glass painting, we will all share that glass painting, but we're now different. We're all just in our own bodies, different shard. And it's something that's in us. And it's that act, it's that unfolding that is that higher, but it's not like a specific person.
So your energy is God to me. That's what you were saying we were aligned on. I think, is that what you were saying? That's how you kind of drew a parallel.
Yeah, I don't see it as an energy. I see people as like antennas almost. And the more authentic you are, the more you tap into a natural unfolding of. I almost see there's like this like source, and when I'm natural, I'm like unfolding into what that is. And like the ideas that I'm having, I see myself as like an antenna, almost like a radio for receiving these ideas. And I think those ideas I have in the unfolding, that is spirituality to me.
Okay.
Interesting. We'll talk about it more. I know.
Yeah, and I built that up over years and years of getting so many different like Taoist perspectives and things like that and finding commonalities. And by the way, I've not been explaining because I've only done it once or twice. So I've touched a lot of different really big topics that are definitely worth double clicking into to really understand what I'm trying to say. I haven't even created.
Yeah, I'd definitely like you to go into more detail after.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Thank you. Okay, I think that being said, it's about time to wrap up. So let's quickly go to the end of the book. So we're talking about the end of the book, right? It ends where basically you find out that is it the cochlear implant place blew up? Is that what they blew up? Because they used pressure cookers and
believe
stuff
so.
like that to blow up the building.
It was like
I can't remember what it's called, but it says it on there.
Yeah, like that cochlear implant hospital blows up, and that's like the big end of the book, and you find out, and the main characters. So I want to get your guys' reactions on the end of the book.
Okay, to be honest, I think as a collection of us. I don't. Just for me, I didn't like the ending at all. I think it was wrapped up too fast. I think that it didn't focus on what I really wanted it to focus on in the deaf community and stuff like that. So it wasn't the preferred ending, but it was an ending that was. It definitely was. It was a statement ending, but it just wasn't the statement I wanted. But
Have you ever seen those like things where it's like it like for this it would be like it was like it was the ending of all time. It's like those posts like
Yeah.
it was the this of all time and it was the what of all time. It was just an ending of all time.
We don't know
It wasn't
the
the
ending.
best. It was just yeah.
Okay,
Anyway.
Haley's opinion.
I bounced back and forth on the ending on like how I feel about it. It wasn't my favorite ending. I feel like sorry, it was okay, but it's like it did take a strong approach on like how they feel towards cochlear implants and how misheard they are and how much they affect the community.
Okay.
And stuff
Thank
like
you for
that.
because that's really what I'm trying to get at. The message for rather than just the ending, it's like the message that the author is trying to deliver in the
Trying to
ending.
deliver.
That's what you're hitting on.
Yeah.
Is how strongly they feel about that. That's a great point.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you, Haley.
It definitely
Wow.
Great
took me.
interpretation.
I finished this book like 3 weeks to a month ago. Like I read it fast. Like I was really interested in it, and it took me up to as soon as Hannah said that about the ending to really like grasp on how I feel because I was really against how the ending was, but I feel like it was a really strong hit and connection at the end because it's like the struggle, the pain they go through with that, and the not understanding that they go through. I feel like it was like a really big message to be like the struggles we're going through, we're gonna affect stuff like that. Just I feel like it took me a little bit to find that connection, but now that I do, it's like it's a really strong message.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mom, any thoughts?
I appreciate you saying that because I was a little disappointed, Hannah. I thought it
Initially, but now I'm kind of-
initially, but that does make sense. That is a hard hit. Now, I wouldn't mind either a second book that talks about what happened with Austin's little sister. Did they implant her or not?
Yeah, for a second book would be great.
To go on and talk about each of the characters and what happened after that.
And they grow
Because-
up and
Right, there's so many characters where you're just like, okay, now what happened? Like, it was a very
Yeah.
powerful message, but
See.
now what? So I think if anything, then let's see what happens now.
I
Like
definitely
part
agree
two.
with how it ended. Too soon. I need more.
I need more, yeah. Left me wanting more.
Yeah, my only unfinished thoughts were because I have to rethink them because I came into the conversation
Not liking
thinking
it.
more just thinking I was stuck on the thought that it is like if it was a movie that's like a very dramatic scene that blows up and I get and something like that. But it links back to my earlier thing about I feel like to actually move the needle, which is really what drives me to trying to move the needle on certain things, there's different ways to do that. This was like a cool, funny way they blew up the plant. But for me, what's more intellectually engaging is how can we actually move the needle? And it's rather than focusing them on they used pressure cookers to blow up a place. Like to me, that wouldn't actually be a good positive impact.
I feel like
in
it was
the
a very
world.
immature ending to
Immature, I guess, is the word I would.
a very great like intellectual like all that
Very serious
Strong,
problem.
passionate.
right
Yeah.
like engaging book where like you understand and you're like going to understand the deaf culture and stuff like that, and then it was just like an immature ending. But like it would have been a good movie ending, but
Yeah, a good
I
like
need-
fun movie because it's like a very serious topic and then it's like a kind of not serious.
right.
It's just not a positive impact actually blowing up plants.
I need a
right?
hard hitting ending that's gonna make an impact because of how serious this book is and
Mm.
what they deal with. I agree. I do. It was a good ending, but it's almost like you have to take it from like a perspective of these are kids, these aren't grown ups,
Right.
these aren't people that are like have a say. They don't have that push to be moving the needle. They need obviously they could get a big community together, but they're so misunderstood. It's their human reaction is to just fight and show whatever they can. It's like
Yeah.
their only way to show their pain and their hurt and their struggle is to blow it up because they have no other say. They
Mhm.
can't, they're not heard. No one understands their sign. They're misunderstood, they're misunderrepresented. So they felt like their only way was to lash out, which obviously wasn't right, but it's like it was showing how much struggle and pain they went through
Yeah.
to do that.
See, that's a great point. Like one thing I didn't touch on in this conversation was a great point about when you found out that the school was shutting down,
Oh
they
my
were like,
goodness.
oh, they're saying that this is happening and it's going to be more diverse in schools and stuff like that, and more inclusion. But the big thing that they said in the book was that in reality, and this was such a great learning for me in the DEI space, in this community, and I love it, was that yes, there may be more inclusion, but there's not equity. And just to define those terms so we're on the same page of what I'm thinking of is inclusion is that we're here, we're all at the table together, but equity is we're not getting treated fairly. And that was a great point to why at first I was like, oh, I see the point of having a diverse thing, but you know what, you're right, it's probably not equitable, which is why it was great to have this own school. And so I bring all this up to say, you know, for me, I was like, maybe there's an ending where they talk about rather than pressure cookers and drugs, maybe they're talking about integrating into, and this is a great part too, but maybe it's like integrating into an actual school and talking about that equity piece and changing the needle there because that's more practical. But again, this is a fiction book and it was a story, so I'm being a little bit of a critic. And ultimately, the message is shown that it's very how meaningful that is to the deaf community.
I also think there was going back to the project we had, like our district and our school, they say the saying, we treat our own or we take care of our own or something like that, where they don't integrate kids into schools where the community is the same as them deaf. They don't integrate them into deaf schools. They just help their own here. And I think it
hurts our Nico kids.
I think it just puts them as an outcast, and it doesn't put them in a
Disadvantage.
yeah, and it doesn't put them in a community where they need to be, where everyone's learning in the same way and is going through the same thing and has the same community. Like all of them are in the same community, you know what I'm saying? I don't do the integrating and stuff like that. It's just
Yeah,
I think the learning aspect, I think it needs to be
having the like-minded communities help.
yeah.
Because you're trying to watch a teacher while they're speaking, and then you're watching the teacher, watching the interpreter, trying to write notes. What are you getting from that? You're
missing half the stuff that's
right.
going on.
You're treating them. It's just a disadvantage to them. It's fair to have them in their own place where they're 100% watching the teacher sign, so they're getting every single thing that they need to be successful later on, and they don't get that even where we are. It's like it's a disadvantage. Yeah.
I love that. I'm all about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but maybe it's you have to have it at the right time. Learning, maybe it is good to have like-minded communities where maybe other situations I don't. So that's great. Do y'all, as kind of a last thing, want to rate the book out of 10? What you'd give it out of 10 and why?
Sure.
Are down for that?
Sure.
All right. Who wants to start?
Okay, I'll start. I'd probably give the book an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Very high rating. I personally don't like reading books at all. It's a chore to read books, and this book I wanted to read. I kept picking it up and wanting to read it, which I know a lot of people say, but I actually liked the book, and I would read it if there was another one. It definitely includes a lot of the deaf culture, which I enjoy, and I learned a lot. Even though I'm in ASL3, I learned more information that I didn't know, which was good. The only reason I give it an 8 out of 10 is the ending. I'm still sticking with the disappointment of it being an immature ending, and I expected more from the beginning, and then the end was just cut short. Yeah.
Cool. 8 out of 10. That's solid.
Yeah.
I love that. By the way, let me say this. I asked that when you rate your book, you cannot use 7.
Perfect.
Okay.
I heard. Mom told me.
Because everyone
I'm a
goes to
little
7. Everyone
wrong
goes to
about
7.
that.
Because then it force choices you to go to 6 or 8. Because that's really like.
Sometimes it is just in that.
Okay.
Sorry. Just read your book.
Okay, and you can.
Kenneth
if you
Michael
feel strong
Sanchez
about it,
says no.
I ask you not to, because it really
for
forces you
this
to take a strong opinion.
Purposes, we won't use
That's the
7.
rules.
Now I want to use 7.
I know, because I want to. Let me just tell you
6,
that
8,
I'm right
7.
now. Also, I was also like I could justify a 7, but I'm gonna just for sake purposes choose a 6 or 8. Let me just say when I rate a book, I normally think about it as how impactful was it to my life. That's because that's what I value a lot. Like how much did it change my perspective. But for this one, I actually was also thinking about. I will be honest. This was a harder read for me. I've been reading a lot of books recently, and relative to others, this was like a very slow read. It was like
Yes.
it was. This book was not easy for me to get through. I'll be honest, relative to others, And because it lost me on the drink, like on the parts that I thought that like the drinking and drugs and stuff, it bored me a little bit. Whatever. But the topic was so new to me and such a powerful topic that it was so impactful. So I'm torn because it really changed my perspective in such an awesome way. But the storyline itself, it was, that ranked lower for me. Ultimately, look, I could see myself giving it a 7 because of those two things, but I'm going to have to put it to a 6. And I think the reason it got me to a 6 was because it really gave me so much more empathy, taught me so much, but it was mostly that, which was the positive stuff. The actual storyline, writing, stuff like that wasn't my favorite.
I want to go back really quick, and I give it an 8 out of 10 also because the switching perspectives of all those people, it really helped me to understand the growth of different people and how you grow up, because obviously everyone grows up in a different household in different ways and stuff like that. So I really like the 3 different perspectives a lot. Okay, sorry. Haley.
Thank you for that. Good ad.
Go ahead. To start off, I don't really rate a book off of like how the storyline was, like stuff like that, because I think every person has a different perspective on how it should be written and all that stuff. And I think each person has a story to tell, and how they tell it, it shows the type of person they are and like certain things they've gone through and how it's impacted them. But I'm basing off like how Kenny is, like how it impacted me, and like Hannah, it's just the same trait. Reading books is like, it's hard. If it's not interesting me, if it's not something I want to read, I'm not reading it. I'm not a person to read. I don't like it. If I can avoid it, I will. But with this book, I think I read 150 pages in one day because it started to get good, and it was like, I just got to keep learning. To go off of that, I just think it was like a very eye-opening thing. I think we live in a world that's very straightforward about certain things. Like, we put things that aren't very realistic out in the world, and I think when you get to read something like that, even if it's not exactly how things I wanted to end and certain characters, I think it's just like a solid book that's like an eye-opening thing to a world that we don't explore that much with certain things like that. So yeah, this is probably the best book I've read in a long time, because I don't read books that I like that much because they're all based off of like Shakespeare.
Yeah,
Don't like-
that's awesome though. That's awesome.
I hate Shakespeare.
But what was your number? Did you give it a number?
I'm saying 9 out of 10 only because
Wow.
the impact it had on me is just like something I'm very passionate about. I love ASL. I love everything in the book, every character for every characteristic, no matter if I like them or not. Mama,
Okay.
time for
Thanks,
you.
Haley. That was awesome.
Well, I'm not supposed to give it a 7, but we have a 6, an 8, and a 9. I'm just
Mom,
gonna
don't
do
be that person.
We should have
that
made
gives
mom
it a
go
7.
first. 'cause now-
Seriously, now she thinks she's her over here giving it a 7. Like,
just and this is my reasoning.
okay,
I can
Wait,
agree.
you can't give it a 7.
we said you can't. Mom, just give the reasoning and then we'll pick a rating for you. Because you're doing
All right, do you, Mama? Don't let me stop you. Sorry.
Yeah, 7
You
out
guys
of
have
10 is
really
fine.
already said everything. There's nothing new to really add light to it. I'm just
So
gonna
7
be
is your
reiterating what you've said.
Okay, but how do you
I-
feel? Yeah.
So all in all, I enjoyed the book. I couldn't put it down either. I
W?
couldn't wait to find out what was going on.
Yeah.
I really identified with some of the characters, just different struggles. Having her, she was taking care of her mom. It was interesting to me. I learned a lot about the deaf culture that I did not know. The ending was a little bit too fast. I wish they would have said more. So I would almost say a 7 to an 8, but then the ending was so short, but it did have a powerful impact. So if I can't give it a 7, I'm gonna give it an 8, like Hannah. I'm
Let's
very
go!
much aligned with your reasoning.
W. We convince.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Sorry that we were doing a little yawning. Everyone's been up since
Yeah,
super early. It's been a long day. We've traveled,
ASL final.
walked.
ASL final that I got a 9 through
Yeah, y'all had the ESL final today. Congrats on high scores on that. Yeah, okay. Ultimately, thank you everyone so much for reading this book with me and talking. I learned so much. Any last words for any of y'all on your mind? Anything you want to say? Anything?
Thank you for listening.
How do we do?
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Wait, how do I want to do it too?
Thank you for.
Thank
It's just like on the chin for listening. Put it by your ear, 3, and then it's listening. Thank you for listening.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for this platform and opportunity. And reading isn't always easy to do, or it's something I'm excited to do, but these book clubs, I want to say shout out to you, Kenny. Thank you very much for starting this. This new adventure you have is really interesting. I've been part of 2 book clubs now, and I can't wait to be invited to another one because it really gives me purpose and intention, and I look forward to my reading. And then to make it part of something, like you said, to help either educate or spread awareness. Thank you, Hannah Haley, for picking this book because I didn't know any of the things. I've learned a lot from this. So you've helped me spread awareness, learn, and I appreciate encouraging me to read. So
Yes, it would have been hard for us to connect at this level without the use of this book.
I agree,
So,
yes.
It's a new exploring topic that we can all be open and vulnerable talking about.
Yes.
I think that helps a lot.
So thank you for the platform.
thank you for being open and vulnerable. Thank you all so much for being present today. Now let's go enjoy some tacos.
Bye.
Bye.